1 minute warning.
Words from world leaders, and he also got a call from a former president.
Former President George W. Bush says he's spoken with Biden, and in a statement adds, quote, "No matter how you voted, your vote counted. President Trump has the right to request recounts and pursue legal challenges, and any unresolved issues will be properly adjudicated. The American people can have confidence that this election was fundamentally fair, its integrity will be upheld, and its outcome is clear.
Fox's Rich Edson. The team of Joe Biden says he'll move quickly to build out. The first focus is to build a coronavirus working group with former Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy and former Food and Drug Administration Commissioner David Kessler as co-chairs of the group. Biden this week will also launch his agency review teams, the transition staffers with access to key agencies in the current administration. Tropical storm Eta is expected to become a hurricane before hitting the Florida Keys late tonight or tomorrow. Fox's Phil Keating is in Key West.
It's marching at 17 miles an hour and heading this way. A state of emergency is in effect for all of the Florida Keys, as is also a hurricane warning. Those living on trailers or houseboats should have found shelter already. Over the weekend, residents filled up sandbags to take home in the Keys, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties because 6 to 12 inches of rain forecast to be coming. Storm surge, flash flooding, serious concern.
Eta struck Central America last week, leaving dozens dead and over 100 missing. And Chase Elliott has raced to his first NASCAR Cup championship, coming from the back of the field to win the season finale at the Phoenix Raceway. America is listening to Fox News.
This holiday season, more people...
Wherever you are, make it Truth Frequency Radio.
Wow. Have we had an insane week or what? I thought Wednesday night's program was pretty good post-election. Everything was sunshine and lollipops. It looked like President Trump was going to sweep everything. All of a sudden, and I had my doubts. Gosh, was I right? Did I predict it correctly? Did I go way out on a limb again? No, I didn't. Actually, I actually don't know how I do it. But I predicted right here on this program a couple of months ago and then repeated it several times that 6 states would refuse to report, that it would throw the election into a state of chaos because neither candidate would get to 270 electoral votes. And that's where we are. Wow. I'm just... I'm as amazed as you are. Really, I am. I'm amazed as you are. I mean, when I do my analysis, my statistical analysis, and I weigh all the things, sometimes I come up with conclusions that just don't make any sense. I mean, they've never happened before. Why would they happen now? Why are you making this weird prediction? But, I got to do what the numbers tell me. The numbers don't lie. And when I said what I said, what did I have to lose? I'm just a little old radio program out in the undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. I don't have anything to lose. But I called it, didn't I? Yes, I did. So where do we go from here? Well, that's what we're going to find out tonight. Yep. Everybody wants to know what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, I'm so amazed at the boss, at President Trump, because if it was any of us out there and we were watching our country being stolen right in front of our own eyes, that Republican poll watchers were being thrown out, that court orders, even as high as the Supreme Court, were being ignored, party bosses and crazy criminal gangs were operating their own voting systems in their own states, saying, yeah, we're going to get you this time. But what was he doing? You and I, we'd be like panicking, eating Tums and, taking Valiums or whatever it is of the day that keeps you calm. Nope. President Trump goes and golfs like a boss. And I bet he golfed pretty well, too. I bet he didn't throw his clubs. I bet he didn't yell. He didn't curse. Why? Well, maybe he listens to this radio program and he already knows, but I think he has a little more information than I do. Maybe I pick up on the same source that he has. I don't know, but it is amazing how calm he is and how calm I am. First, let me give you my Religion of Peace report tonight. The Religion of Peace in the last 7 days conducted 31 attacks. In these 31 attacks, they killed 124 innocent people. They injured 93 innocent people. No suicide blasts in the last 7 days. But their mayhem was spread across 10 countries. All of this from the Religion of Peace. Thank you so much, everyone in the chat room. Brandy's out there. Raspberry's out there. Thank you so much. Oh, is my volume low? I can bring it up a little bit. I don't think it should be low. Let me check my, I'm checking my stream right now. Yeah, it does look a little bit low. Let me see if I can bring that up. I'll bring that up just a little bit. How's that, Raspberry? That should be a little bit louder. I'm trying to bring it up closer to the red line. I thought my voice was okay. I aim to please. If the signal's too low, I will raise it up and we'll do better. Yeah, chip and putt, Mr. T. Let's get a hole in one. Brian Lancaster, good point, good point. And we have people out there on D-Live. Wild Boar 3000, you're new. Did Hillary win yet? No, not quite yet, not quite yet. She's going to win something, but it ain't going to be what she thinks it is. Blanche, good to see you out there. I hear perfectly. Good. 314 Megatron. Is it still low? No. Free MPG is saying it sounds good. Jeff D says it's good here. He's listening over on Periscope, it looks like. Locutus, good to see you. 5x5. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the input. And who is it? The one jamming? Oh, I like that. Flying V Gibson. That's good. It looks like my friend Forrest. Yeah, that's very cool. He's over on D-Live as well. As I predicted, D-Live is really growing now. It's growing for a couple of reasons. One is, of course, it is the only blockchain format out there. The other is, as you know, YouTube summarily dropped the sword of Damocles on 20 of my contemporaries, including the amazing Polly and Red Pill 78 and Space Shot and X22 and all the other greats. And so it sent tens of millions of subscribers scattering into the night looking for the truth because their channels were deleted. All their content was gone. Their channels were gone. Their presence was gone. And thank you, Jen, for being out there as well. I see you on my other resource out there on the West Coast. And so they didn't give up. These voices of freedom, these voices of free speech did not give up. They found other platforms. And of course, I went over to D-Live, I don't know, about a month and a half ago to try to forge my way. Not many podcasters over there at the time, mostly gamers. But told my friends about it, and sure enough, here they came, and they brought their viewers with them. And so D-Live is now experiencing growing pains. And that's good. It's good for you guys 2 or 3 guys over there running D Live and the blockchain format. They're gonna come of age, and they're gonna do just fine. And also Twitch. Twitch is also a gamer's format, but it has also turned into a really amazing format. If you like music, do you know you can go over there pretty much any time of the day or night, and you can find 1 or 2 musicians out there playing their stuff or doing copy or doing their amazing art one-on-one, one on however many are listening at the time, sitting there playing their guitar, their piano, or their guitar and piano and singing. And I'm amazed at the art that's there. It's a little different format, costs you about $4 a month to subscribe to them, but that's the way that they get paid, and it's kind of neat. It creates a revenue model that's a little different than YouTube. And it's good because we don't like it. Americans don't like it when people tell us what to do, right? You're pretty defiant. That's why you're here at America Free Radio, because this is the voice of the revolution. What are we revolting against? We're revolting against the deep state. We're revolting against the global syndicate, what I call them. They're more than just the deep state. I'm going to turn the volume down on my ringer here because I have all these neat little tones that go off when people text me or messages come through. I want to make sure that you don't hear those. And I can pay attention to all these media at the same time. Now, we're going to do a couple things differently tonight. During the commercial breaks, I'm afraid I have to do something I've never done before. I'm going to have to mute Truth Frequency Radio. I didn't want to do it. I don't want to do it tonight. But I'm forced to do it by YouTube, because YouTube will not let me play their commercial content on their platform, because what they do is they take away my monetization. So we're going to have to mute the studio during the commercials, and you and I will talk. We'll talk with the chat room or something during those 3 minutes, and then we'll come back. It's just one more thing. I only have 2 hands, but sometimes I can do multiple things. Not really. I just make it look like I do, just like you. And so we will work with that. Truth Frequency is where the truth freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our truth freak flag fly. So this is the place to be if you want to be anywhere tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Sunday and Wednesday nights. Oh, thank you, Blanche. Blanche switched over to D Live. That's good. See, what we're trying to do on D Live being a blockchain format, has follower requirements, okay? And what we're trying to do is get to 200. We're almost there, but once we get to 200, it opens up special capabilities for us that allows us to archive programs so that people who don't get to see the live broadcast, when it's live, they can come back tomorrow or the next day and they can watch it. Isn't that neat? That's really neat. I enjoy that. Now, Wednesday, when we post new content, it may replace that. Same thing on Twitch, but that's fine. At least it gives 72 hours for people to enjoy the content. Okay, Raz, she says mafia is mafia. Maybe. I mean, this is more than that. What we're talking about here is not necessarily organized crime. What we're talking about is suppression of free speech. We're talking about institutional censorship. That's a little more nefarious than the mafia. All right. What is that? Oh, yeah, I get you. Good point, Brian. I appreciate that. Diane, don't worry about it. She says, I'm subscribed on D Live, but haven't figured it out. All you really have to do is follow anyone you want to follow there. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat. It'll go out to all the chats, so you'll have it, because I'm using a consolidated chat service. And if you follow this, it will take you to my channel. Now, if you go to my channel, of course, you can follow me. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything on DLive to follow. And then when you're there, you can explore other podcasters. And you can develop your favorites, which will be on the left-hand side. So then every time you return to DLive, there are your favorites on the left. You just look at them and see if they're live at the moment. If they are, you can click on them and interact with them. And of course, there are ways to send currency in the form of lemons or diamonds or ice creams or different things like that. And sometimes they cost money and sometimes they're just performance-based, but they add up. They add up. And over time, it will develop a revenue engine for us, which is good. A little bit of money for you. It can be quite a bit of money for us. I don't have but just maybe less than 200 followers on DLive right now, maybe a little over 1,000 on Twitch, so it really hasn't developed in anything yet, but it will. And it doesn't matter if it does or not, I'm here for you. So let's talk about the Great Reset. It is on people's minds. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way to begin with. Yeah, Raz says, you didn't grow up in Chicago. Told not to move around here, but what it don't move to the Union. I get it, Raz. I get it. No. Oh, okay. Well, Diane says she can't chat. Yeah, chat is a little bit different on DLive, but it's not that different. It's pretty much the same as everywhere. So what is the Great Reset? Okay, let's get this out of the way right away. Because there are a lot of people thinking about it, dreaming about it, hoping for it. Oh, Nasara. Almost worship it. It's been around for a couple of decades. Totally worthless. The Great Reset is a massively funded, desperately ambitious, internationally coordinated project led by some of the biggest multinational corporations and financial players on Earth. And it's carried out by cooperating state bodies and non-governmental organizations. Its soul is a combination of early 20th century science fiction, idyllic Soviet posters, the obsessiveness of a deranged accountant with a gambling addiction, and an upgraded digital version of Manifest Destiny. The mathematical reason for the Great Reset is that, well, thanks to technology, the planet has gotten smaller. We shrunk it. You can fly it. You can talk. You and I are talking. I had class yesterday with people in South Africa, people in out west, and here all simultaneously. We've shrunken the planet. And the infinite expansion economic model is a bust. It's a bust. But obviously, the super wealthy want to continue staying super wealthy compared to you. And so they need a miracle. They need another bubble. You know what a bubble is? Like it gets so big and then it pops. And when it pops, everything falls apart. And only the ones that have money can pick up the pieces for a dime. And that's what happened in 1929. That's what happened in 2008. I mean, come on. Multi-billionaires are made when they can be properly positioned in the right place at the right time with the right amount of money, right? They need a surgically precise system for managing what they perceive as their limited resources. Thus, they desperately want a bubble providing new growth out of thin air, literally out of thin air, out of nothing but fiat currency, right? They simultaneously seek to lighten the peasants' belts. That would be us. An effort that starts with behavioral modification, like you shouldn't set your sights on those kinds of things. You should be happy with being a worker all your life. You're going to make coffee. You're going to care for children as a profession. You're going to push dirt or stack bricks or weld steel. You understand what I'm saying? There is no getting ahead for you. There is no like working 2 jobs, saving your money up, opening your own mechanic shop, hiring 3 more mechanics to duplicate what you do, turning a $100,000 or $200,000 a year business into $1 million or $1.5 million a year business. There is none of that because they get your mind out of that mindset. The psychological reason for the Great Reset is the fear of losing control of property, losing their stuff, losing the planet. And I suppose if you own billions and you move trillions around the planet, your perception of reality gets kind of weird, gets kind of twisted. Like, you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from. No, nothing like that. You want to worry about, when you're going to be able to buy your next skyscraper. Or worse, whether your competitor is going to be able to buy a skyscraper and you won't. And that's what it kind of boils down to. I mean, when we think about wealth, it is all relative, isn't it? Even in the chat room, they're talking about it. Yes. Andre says, accountable and present. A soldier of God said, hey, Brooks, from down under, it's good to have you here. I'm so glad you're here. It's a little bit odd time zone out there. And it is the CCP template, Brian, but it's a little different. You see, the CCP is all about the party. The CCP is perfectly happy with sacrificing 300 million Chinese if they could kill 300 million Americans. And I don't mean wipe them out with nuclear bombs and clean everything off to the foundation. No. They don't want to have to rebuild everything in this country. They just want this country. They want us to leave. They want us to leave. They want us to die so they can have what we have built. It is the same thing that happens in country after country, despot after despot. Same story since the earth cooled. They don't want to destroy everything we have. They want to take everything we have. So they realize that they can't do that as long as we are here. And I don't mean just Americans. I mean, as long as the caretakers of freedom and liberty are here on the planet, they cannot run their scam. So the practical aim of the Great Reset is to fundamentally restructure the world's economy. Just rebuild it, right? Like Star Trek, rebuild it. And, geopolitical retaliations based upon two assumptions. It's pretty simple, but it's important that you understand them. The first assumption is that every element of nature and every life form is a part of the global inventory, which, of course, is managed by the allegedly benevolent state, which in turn is owned by several suddenly benevolent wealthy people via technology. Boom, all of a sudden, you own all of Western Europe, sort of thing. And the second is that all inventory needs to be strictly accounted for. It needs to be registered in a central database. It needs to be readable by a scanner and easily ID'd and be managed by artificial intelligence using the latest science. The goal is to count and then efficiently manage and control all the resources, which includes, if you listen to the global value stream mapping and what we call lean manufacturing. I know you're not into manufacturing, but it's a lean principle. And it basically means that all inventory, including people, are accounted for and applied in a way that benefits the whole, benefits the greater good. And there is no individuality. There is no room for greatness, and there is no room for stupidity. There's only the smooth floor. Hence the statement, a nail sticking up is hammered down. It comes from ancient Japanese philosophy. Japanese do not wear shoes in their homes. They use the stocking feet in their homes to keep the hardwood floors from being marked by bare feet, but also keeping the outside dirt outside the home and being able to walk around. Obviously, if there is a nail sticking up in the hardwood floor and you're wearing stocking feet, well, the next thing you know, somebody's injured. And so the philosophy is that a nail sticking up in the hardwood floor is hammered down. It has a philosophical application to society. It means that anybody that stands out, anybody that stands up, anybody that is different than anyone else is immediately hammered down. Everything must be smooth so that we don't have to worry about looking at the floor when we walk around. This goal of managing all these resources, including people, on an unprecedented scale, with unprecedented digital anxiety and precision, all while the masters keep indulging. They keep enjoying vast patches of conserved nature. They get to walk through the national parks, but you don't. They get to ride their horses through the forest, but you don't. They get to sail their ships across the sea, but you don't. They get to fly their airplanes through the sky, but you don't. They get to go to the desert and enjoy the serene solitude of primal life, but not you. It's their planet. You are simply the caretakers of it, and they are the beneficiaries. They are free of unnecessary sovereign peasants and their unpredictability. The king's world feels far more predictable and relaxed when the chaos of human subjectivity is contained forever. That's the reset. That's the reset. In other words, it's an efficient global feudalism. I know you know what feudalism is, right? You have a king, and then you have vassals that pay their homage to the king, along with their communities and businesses that they run, whether they're a blacksmith or whether they're a farmer or a rancher. And then you have the serfs. The serfs are the ones that own no property, but they work the property. And in exchange for working the property, they get protection from the vassals. The vassals then get protection from the alliance of other vassals with the king. The king can then muster a large army which can protect them. And that's the system. It's kind of medieval, but it has been done since the earth cooled. Under that framework, every peasant has a function and is derived, unfortunately, not from the mystery of life and not from their inner calling. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's derived by artificial intelligence. The master of efficiency and the servant of the king. Ideally, the peasants can be convinced that if it's good for them, and that is what progress and happiness are like, but if not, there are other ways, from classic violence to virtual prisons, and of course, morality pills. Morality pills comes from the book 1984 or Brave New World, where people are given a drug called Soma. Soma, makes you more docile, keeps your head down. Keep looking at your screen. Keep looking at your screen for instructions, where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to think. I'm with you, Restaman 59. He says, no, thank you. See, you're an obstinate American. You're an obstinate American. Yes, we are slowly experiencing this here in Victoria, Australia. Soldier of God said he's down under. And you really have no place to escape unless you want to go out to the outback, I suppose. I don't know that country. I've never been there, but I plan on going someday. Yeah. Mona says some is extremely deadly. It's true. Hey, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. All right, so that's how we do it. See, I muted the studio, so the studio is going to do its thing. It's going to have its little 3-minute commercial. I want to let you know that for sure the phone lines are open all night tonight. I know you need someone to talk to, and I'm just that person. It's 213-233-3998 if you're listening on Truth Frequency Audio. We are also streaming live on YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook Live, DLive. We're trying to go out to LinkedIn, although LinkedIn doesn't really have a live streaming service yet, but we're working on it. So we'll bring up the studio again in a second and see if we can keep that going. If not, we may lose the studio. I'm not really sure. But I'm briefly going to go over different elements of this slippery reform in a second. But let's go ahead and get through this break. I'll go ahead and answer some questions in the chat room right now. Oh, congratulations. I've received 100 messages today. Wow, we did that in the first segment. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yes, Do It to Julia, Not Me, 1984. Very good, James. You have the book next to you? I read that book about 40 years ago. It was really leading edge in its day, but it was, a story about government taking over everything, government not letting us have our own thoughts, our own dreams, our own way to go. Government took care of everything. It was forward-looking into a time when Earth would be way, way overpopulated. Yeah. Thank you very much. Jen says, prefer talking to you instead of the commercials. Anyway. So we'll bring them back in about 57 seconds. I'll get better at this. It's a little odd for me not hearing the commercials in the background. Yeah. Who gets the apples and milk? Yeah, it was a book written a long time ago, but it was very prophetic in its day. Like 1984, we're never going to make it to 1984. Sort of like the Birth Trilogy. I wrote the Birth Trilogy, and then all of a sudden, while I was in the second volume, things that were written in the first volume were starting to take place, like in real life. It was blowing my mind. I just wasn't ready for that kind of connection. Yeah. Videos from the Underground says Lindsey Graham urges Trump and Republicans not to concede. I totally agree. Don't concede. I mean, look at all the papers, right? Dewey wins, right? Gore wins. I saw the headlines. I've seen the papers. I wasn't there with Dewey, but I was there with Gore. And there they actually let them get to...
No fear.
There we go.
Real radio.
All right, that first commercial break is over. Thank you so much for your patience. Let me give you my commercial break. Contact in the Desert is coming up in June of 2021. I know it sounds like it's so far away, like 1984 was so far away when Aldous Huxley wrote that book. But Contact in the Desert is the biggest UFO conference in the world. In years past, it's been open. That is to say, as many people could come to it as possible. But in recent years, it got too big. 10,000 people, just too many people. So they're limiting it this year in 2021 to 8,000 people, which means it is going to sell out. It is going to sell out. And I want you to be there. So the best way to do that is to go to my website, brooksagnew.com, brooksagnew.com, click on the upcoming events, and then click on the Contact in the Desert ad, which looks just like this one that I have streaming now live on 5 different forms around the world. And you can sign up. And that's the way to get there. The tickets are as cheap as they're going to be. Make your plans now. And I'll see you at Contact in the Desert. It is an amazing experience if you have not been there. So I do so much very like to see you there. All right, I was going over the Great Reset, and I was trying to assure everybody that this is real, but it's not something that you should get on the bandwagon with. Don't keep following the signs out there that say you should be all ready for the Great Reset. I had friends that bought Iraqi dinar, they bought Vietnamese dong, they were all about this great currency reset. They were going to make $1 million for their $1,000 investment. Oh, I think it was even more than that. It was $1 million for a $100 investment. It was crazy. And there were people out there praying on my friends, just please buy another, million Iraqi dinar. You're going to be rich, just like the people with the Kuwaiti dinar. Hurry, hurry, there's not many left. And I felt so sorry for my friends spending their hard-earned money for that stuff, hoping and praying for this great reset. It's not what you think. That's not what the Great Reset is. I agree, Wild Boar 3000, Trump has transitioned to the next level. I think he was at the next level already. We already knew what was going to happen with this because he listens to America Free Radio, I'm afraid. But he already knew what was going to happen with this debacle with the cheat by mail. He already knew it. It didn't take him by surprise. I think it was surveilled. I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that tomorrow, and I'll give you more of this in the coming hours tonight. We're on for 3 hours. I don't want to spill my beans just yet, but I will tell you that there are things in the works, and when they saw that they were going to get away with it, they couldn't help themselves. They dumped upwards of 30 million, that's a lot, 30 million fraudulent votes into the system all over the country. It's a huge amount. It boggles the mind. Ballots R Us is an amazing organization. And, of course, it was all in Democrat states. In Washington State, for instance, if you live up there or have lived up there and voted by absentee ballot, in years past, the way that it worked is you received an absentee ballot. Everybody in Washington State votes with an absentee ballot. But here's how it's been done in elections past. In elections past, you received your ballot, which you sat in the privacy of your own home with your own coffee, however you like it. I don't like pumpkin spice, I'm sorry. But they sat down and filled out their ballot in the privacy of their own home and signed the ballot. And then you slip the ballot inside what's called a secrecy envelope. A secrecy envelope. And you lick it and seal it shut, and you sign the outside of the secrecy envelope. Your ballot is now secure inside this secrecy envelope. And then that envelope goes inside of a mailing envelope, and then that envelope is sealed, and that envelope is signed on the outside, and off it goes. Now, that's pretty secure. When it arrives at the state, they see that it's sealed, they see that it has a signature on the outside, they say, oh, this is a bona fide ballot. They open the outside, they take out the sealed envelope with the ballot secretly sealed on the inside of it, and that envelope goes to the next step. At the next step, that envelope is opened, that ballot is removed, it's counted in the system, and that's how they tallied the votes. I'm not saying it wasn't without fraud, but I'm saying it was a pretty good system, and the people of Washington State were pretty used to it. It took a while to implement it, a while to work all the bugs out of it, but that's the way it worked until this election. In this election, the system changed. Way, way different. You still got the ballot. But instead of the ballot going inside of a secrecy envelope, it went inside of a secrecy slipcover. It wasn't sealed. The ballot could easily be slid out of it. And then the secrecy slipcover goes inside the envelope on the outside. That's sealed, signed, and sent off. Now, when the envelope is opened, the ballot can be removed without disturbing the secrecy slipcover. Another ballot can be slipped into the secrecy slipcover, and off it goes to the next step for that new ballot to be removed and counted. And that is exactly what happened. Trump won Washington State. Anybody that lives in Seattle and has been through that shit show that they've been going through for the last 2 years, 3 years up there, knows There are Trump signs everywhere. It is total Trump country. They hate what's going on in their state. They hate their governor. They hate their mayor. They hate their city manager. They hate everything that's going on up there, and they want it to change. And the only person that would listen was President Trump. And yet, he lost Washington State. And a lot of anomalies up there, a lot. They called the state of California before California's polls even closed. It was blue before the polls even closed. So I'm just telling you, there's a lot going on here, and we're going to cover much more of this in the next hour. I'm with you, Brandy Lou. She says, I don't like pumpkin spice either. It's like, carrot cake. I like cake. I like carrots. What are you doing mixing the two together? See, I like pumpkin pie. I like coffee. I don't like pumpkin spice in my coffee. Yeah. Videos from another guy. Opened in an envelope. Supposed to be faster. Yes, that was the reasoning behind it. And it didn't turn out to be that way. Oh, it was faster and easier. But see how they changed it? They changed it at the last minute to fit their model. So I'm briefly going to go over these different elements of this slippery reform, which we call the Great Reset. But to sum it up, the desired end result is a giant, joyless, highly controlled global conveyor of everything and everybody, where privacy is tremendously expensive, dissent not possible, and spiritual submission is mandatory. It's like a 24/7 medicated reality, except the medications are both chemical and digital. They are reporting you back to the mothership, which can then punish you for bad behavior by, say, blocking your access to the bus or the train or the plane, or blocking your car loan or your student loan, right? Or your loan for a house, or a rental agreement, perhaps without any human intervention at all. In this country, we call it the slave score. What is that? Oh, she says, I live carrot cake. I actually think she means I love carrot cake. I'm with you too. I like carrots. I like cake. I'm not mixing my carrots in my cake. Bananas and bread, I'm cool with it. Carrots, not belonging in cake. I'm just saying, yes, it can be tasty. Of course it can be tasty. Have I ever made it on purpose? No. Mona, have you ever made carrot cake on purpose? No. You've eaten it at Starbucks or at a friend's house, but you've never made carrot cake on purpose. Get real. Come on. Yes. Well, Soldier of God says it begins with forced COVID-19 vaccines. Maybe. I think that's somewhere in the middle. It begins with, in this country, we call it, well, you could call it your credit score. I call it a slave score. You have a number that's assigned to you from 0 to 850. God help you if you have a 0. But this number is assigned to you based on, well, it's mysterious. No one really knows what it's assigned to you based on. You either have a high score because you're a good slave, or you have a low score because you're a bad slave. Everybody has things happen in their lives. You lose a job, you get injured, you get sick. These kinds of things. You miss a payment here and there. It sticks with you for 7 years. 7 years. If you missed a credit card payment, you missed a mortgage payment. That missed payment, the record of it, stays with you for 7 years. If you went to the CVS store and you shoplifted an electric razor, a $50 electric razor, and they caught you in the parking lot, slapped the cuffs on you, took you down, tried you and convicted you for shoplifting, that conviction would not stay with you for 7 years. You would be back out on your feet working as a normal human being. Once you pay your fine, you're out, you're off, you're good to go. You are punished more for a missed payment on your slave score than you are for stealing that electric razor. Them's the facts, folks. And if you have a medical bill that you can't pay, you get sick, you pay what you can, can't pay the rest, it goes as a charge off on your account, you're done for 7 years. It's not with you for life, but 7 years is a long damn time to say goodbye to buying a car, buying a home, or checking into an apartment, because they will check your credit. And there are the things that the slave score keeps track of. It keeps track of where you work, how long you've worked there, whether you've written bad checks or not. All those things go on your slave score, and they count against you. And if you don't have enough of the right credit, and you're not paying that credit on time, as a good slave would, then you're going to have a low score. And you better not get to a point where you can live within your means. Oh, hell no. You get to a point where you can live within your means and you don't actually have to have a credit card. Oh, my God. Talk about a low credit score. You got to get down in the 4s or 5s. You won't be able to borrow money from anybody, not a pawn shop with a credit score like that. Don't ever get to the point where you can pay all your living expenses from your own income. The slave score will excoriate you. You won't be able to borrow money for love nor money, and if you do, the interest rates are going to be through the headache, through the ceiling. I said headache because Scott Harris said MSG gives me a headache. Sorry. See, you suggested that to me, Scott. The other thing that happens is this. Okay, we have this smart device right here. It's listening. It's listening to what I'm saying. It's listening. And chances are, if I mention something like kitty litter, or I mention something like a carnauba wax for my Ford pickup truck, I'm not online at all here. It's just, I'm sitting there. I don't want to show you the screen because I'll show it to you really fast. See, it's not anything. It's just a text message just coming through. The point is, Facebook's listening to me. Somewhere in the next 60 minutes, an ad for carnauba wax or my pickup truck's going to show up on Facebook. I'm not online. I'm not on Facebook at the moment, but it's listening. See, it's listening. So the artificial intelligence becomes part of our life. How many of you have anxiety when you walk out of the house, get in your car, turn the key, drive down the road, and realize, I left my cell phone sitting on the nightstand? How many of you will turn around and go home and get that phone? Yeah, I have to. I've done it before. Not very often. I'm a good soldier. Not very often. But I have had to turn around, drive back home, run upstairs, get my phone, take it out, plug it into the truck, and then head for work. It's anxiety. We're connected. This is the electronic level of behavior modification that's going on. Okay? And they're able to block your access to certain places by putting a hold on your digital bank account, perhaps without any human intervention at all. You have a PayPal account, you have a Stripe account, you have an e-wallet or something like that. I'm sweating kind of spinal fluid right here, because if Biden becomes president, there's not enough money. There isn't enough money to handle everything. You know where they got to get it? They got to get it from me. You got to get it from you. What's going to happen is the bank is suddenly going to close. And when the bank closes, they're going to take my money. Why? Well, the state needs it. You don't need it. Obviously, you don't need it because you're saving it. What are you saving it for? It doesn't matter what you're saving it for. This belongs to the state now. It belongs to the bank. Yeah. No, I kind of experienced it. I didn't take it too well. I went to the bank to get something notarized, and I thought I'll just push on the handle and open the door and go in the bank. Oh, no. Guy met me at the door. You got to have an appointment. I said, an appointment? Why? Well, we because of COVID, we can't allow more than, one person in the bank at a time. I said, one person in the bank? It's a bank. There could be 50 people in there doing different things. I'm just here to get something notarized. Well, you need an appointment. Well, fine, I'll make an appointment. I'm making an appointment right now. Oh, you can't do it that way. You got to do it online. Okay, I pulled out my phone. I'll make an appointment right now. What's the website? Well, we're full up for the month. What? You're full up for the month. You asked me to make it. So effectively, this bank is closed. That's what you're trying to say. And he just looked at me. And I said, you guys did this once already in 1933. It's called the bank holiday. So sorry. So sorry, you can't have access to your money. It's in the bank, it's safe and sound, but we can't let you have access to it. Because if you pull it out, you're going to hurt the bank. And so we can't let that happen. So we're going to close the bank, keep your money, and you can come back in a couple of years. Well, they took the money, and they never brought it back. And that's the way it was. So on a sensory level, as it relates to money and power, because after all, that's all there is, right? This conveyor is an attempt of the super wealthy, and I'm not talking about the guy that owns the car dealership down the street. I'm talking about the guy that owns 1,000 car dealerships. The super wealthy, the billionaires. On the level of the super wealthy, they want to organize and monetize their assets, including people, more efficiently than ever before. They want to do it on a theological level. The initiative is shaped by transhumanism, a formal belief system rooted in a pathological feeling of being repelled by all things natural, and a resulting view of biological forms as defective robots, which are made perfect, serial killer perfect, by merging them with machines in a way that redefines the meaning of being alive, and it defies death itself. I'd like to stress that we should never underestimate the importance of subjective feelings and theology in the shaping of historical events. Our entire history, the history of this country, the history of this people, is a sum of subjective choices, where the choices of the more powerful and the more driven simply weigh more. And religious reform, which typically stems from various powerful individuals' subjective preference for what the big picture should be like, has been a driver of large-scale social, economic, and cultural changes on this planet. Millennia. What we are looking at here is, I'm sorry to say, a new religion. One of the chatters said it earlier in the last hour, or in the last half hour. It's a new religion. As much as I want to believe in the general cleanliness and rationality of this new economic system, which could be on a higher level, we are not dealing with a rational, scientific, honest, benevolent, or even a misguided attempt to make things better. There is no build back better. When it comes to the masterminds of the Great Reset, we are dealing with a combination of standard good old greed and the emotional pathology of restless, rotting madmen who are freaking out all over the maintenance of their property in this new era, and who resent their biological nature as such, and they want to be gods. They want to be gods. That guy that you see out there in diapers, stuttering around, barely making it through a speech day by day, trying his level best to not overdose on Prevagen while he reads a teleprompter. That guy wants to be immortal. But he's not going to be. If he lasts another 3 weeks, it'll be an absolute miracle. He won't last another year without. He's going to be drooling and pooping himself all day long. Sadly, the crazies, these insane individuals, they're rich and they're well connected. And they can hire 1 million underlings to put on a convincing, feel-good, rational, external-facing presentation about this new religion. And to bribe the media and politicians and academics and campaign organizers and nonprofits and shell corporations, and let's not forget the artists and the journalists and the lovely, beautiful news actors out there who hide their cosmetic surgeries so well. And by the time the circle is complete, we have a brand new public opinion, and technically still a democracy. If only those conspiracy theorists went away. Well, we ain't going anywhere, are we? We're going to be here. look at individuals who defy age. I have to tell you that some of these news organizations have the best makeup artists. They're really quite tremendous. Did you see Sidney Powell on Fox today? Normally, she wears a tidy amount of makeup. She's a lady, but she's a very intelligent prosecutor, and she's a damn good defense attorney. Well, they had her on Fox News. Of course, they put you into the makeup room in Fox News, and they put the apron around your face, and poof, here comes the makeup. They put her out, and she had so much makeup on. It was like, Sydney, what are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, they've done marvelous things with Maria Bartiromo. Marvelous things. If you looked at her 2 years ago and looked at her today, it's still understated, but the bags, the circles under her eyes are gone, and, you know, she's just done a lot of good things for her. But if you look at what they did to Sidney Powell today, it was atrocious. Should have just come out as herself. Anyway, that's what the Great Reset is all about. AI, 5G, IoT, and so on. A world where the money is digital, the food is lab grown, where everything is counted and controlled by giant monopolies, and the people are largely deprived of free will. You don't want to go there. You don't want to move there. There's no such thing as an expatriate. Oh, you want to take your Social Security check and you want to move to Portugal. You want to move to Panama. You want to move to Bolivia. You want to move to Ecuador. By the way, they use the dollar bill in Ecuador. It's pretty cool. But you want to live there, and you want to take the Social Security money, and you want to spend it in a foreign country. Well, sorry to say, that's not going to be allowed anymore. You're either going to have to come home, or you're going to have to stay. But no money. The money doesn't leave the country. It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. It's a world where each element of nature and each living being is either a data host, a source of energy, or both. Or both. You are commanded to consume. You are commanded to produce. A world where the flow of the peasants every day is micromanaged by ever monitoring, ever nudging artificial intelligence that registers your thoughts. It registers your feelings before the people even get a chance to make those thoughts and feelings their own. A world where living itself is outsourced to the machine. And a human being is essentially a meat popsicle, to take a line from Fifth Element. Now, I don't think this is the exact vision that's ever going to come true. Not in full, anyways. And it's mostly because of you. It's likely to implode before it gets halfway there. And some of what I just described is no more than, the daydreaming of a broken computer. But the powerful crazies are really trying their best to make this nightmare reality. And they may do it through the COVID vaccine, if not that vaccine, something else. Some bracelet that you have to wear that has some intelligence in it. Just like we don't go outside without our cell phones, you don't go outside without that fit on, or without that clip on your belt, or that ear tag. That's a good way to put it, an ear tag. So you can be tracked, so you can be identified. Voter fraud. We're plagued by voter fraud. Vote in person with ID. Yeah, vote in person with your ear tag. That's what we're talking about. The danger is not in being overtaken by suddenly self-conscious AI, but in the disruption of normal life and in the utter misery that the crazies may cause. Quick break. Let's go ahead and knock out our studio. All right. Our studio's out. It's just you and me. Let's go ahead and look at the chat room really quick while they're not watching. It's pretty cool, this... I'm getting the hang of it, knocking out these. There we go. All right, just making some changes to the visuals there. Now we're looking at Pluto, not Jupiter. So what do we have here? Yes, Sydney was awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit about that because, Hammer is a satellite-based computer system. It uses satellites called Corona satellites, believe it or not, Corona satellites. And it is a powerful military-grade, let's just call it para-internet computer. It's above internet. It is uninterruptible. It's a military-grade computer system. It's designed to handle huge amounts of data, and it's so fast that it almost gives you a view into the future. Not a view like 2 minutes into the future, but a view like 50 microseconds into the future, which is a good way to kind of head fake markets and do all kinds of other things, and that's why it was developed. And a piece of software that was called Scorecard. Hammer is the computer system. Scorecard is the software system. Now, Scorecard is designed to subtly manipulate vote tallies. That's what it's there for. As you know, Diebold is the machine that counts your vote. It's the machine you sit in front of and count your vote, enter your vote. It's the voting machine. Well, it got big. They were the only ones in the business for a long time, and what happened is they formed a monopoly, and monopolies are no good, and so the DOJ stepped in and made Diebold break up because of Sherman antitrust violations. So they did. And when they break up, of course, these very big behemoth companies are worth lots of money, and typically like AT&T or Microsoft or whatever, they have impact. They have impact on our national security, as did Diebold, because obviously they counted all the votes, right? Not tally them, but count them. So you have to be careful who gets to buy the pieces of that divided up monopoly. One of those buyers was a Canadian company. Canadian company's name was Dominion. Dominion was approved to buy a big chunk of Diebold, the actual vote machine company. Now, in order to be approved, you have to go through 6 different offices of the U.S. government, one of them being the State Department. In fact, you might say that the State Department is actually the hinge department. Once the State Department says, yeah, this is okay, we've checked them out, these guys are fine, the rest of the departments usually fall right in line. Well, guess who was Secretary of State at the time that Diebold was broken up? That's correct. It was Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State when Dominion was approved to buy a sizable chunk of Diebold. And guess who owns a significant chunk of Dominion? The Clinton Foundation. It's true. The Clinton Foundation owns a sizable chunk of Dominion. Dominion's purchase of Diebold was approved by Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State. So effectively what we have here is Hillary Clinton owns a big portion of the voting machines in the United States. Chances are mostly in these battleground states that are refusing to report right now. 30 states inside the United States are using Dominion's software. 30 states are using Dominion's software, which is all linked to Scorecard, which is all connected to Hammer. If you look at, and I may play this tonight if I can get to it, the video of the state senator in Michigan, a former state senator in Michigan, now a poll worker. Hang on a second, we've got to get back. Yes, I forgot about the studio. Let's see here. Hang on a second, we're calling them up. All right, there, we're connected to the studio again. Let me go ahead and add the caller board. So that is tied in. Go to. All right, now we're connected again. So everybody on Truth Frequency is hearing me now. You're hearing me now. Everything is still flowing nicely, and we're connected again. Sorry, I almost forgot about that. You guys distracted me. Hey, LinkedIn. Looks like we may actually be connected to LinkedIn. We're actually sending them data. That's very cool. I don't know how that's working, but we'll see. Oh, it says no conference in session. Oh, there we are. We're back. Oh, my goodness, thanks. See, what happens in the studio, if more than 60 seconds of blank space goes by, the computer takes over, it goes into rebroadcast form, and we no longer get in. So now we're back. Sorry about that, Truth Frequency. I will do a better job. I have to do this because YouTube is telling me I cannot run your commercials without taking a copyright strike. So I'm deleting your commercials and replacing them with mine. All right. So who are the people that are leading this? A lot of people want to know this. During the break, we talked about Dominion, which owns the Diebold machines. Dominion's software is being used by 30 states inside the United States, and all of the battleground states that are refusing to report right now are using Dominion software. And the Dominion software is designed using Scorecard to subtly flip votes from one candidate to another. In one precinct in Michigan, almost 6,000 votes. Statewide, if you extrapolate that to all the precincts in Michigan, Donald Trump won Michigan in a landslide. Chances are it's that way in every single state in the country. We're probably looking at a 49-state sweep by President Trump. It'll be devastating. I'm going to tell you all about this. We're going to talk about it in depth shortly. It's important that we discuss this because you want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. I want you to know. But first, we're talking about this great reset and what is possible. We want to know who's in charge of this. Who are the people leading this? How is this effort coordinated? From the looks of it, it seems to be the usual suspects. The top capitalists in the world, historically wealthy dynasties from different parts of the world, members of secular and religious royalty, billionaires, and of course the CCP. It's the people who have enough money to feel like this world belongs to them. And maybe also the people immediately under them who are seeking upward mobility. They also believe the world belongs to them. You know, they're like the Mr. Ma. You know who Mr. Ma is with Alibaba? You think Mr. Ma believes he owns the world? No, he's no fool. He knows the instant he says the word my instead of ma. When he says the word my, he's going to be floating in a rice paddy somewhere. He means nothing. Nothing. So obviously they're not a monolithic mass. And I'm sure they won't agree with each other on everything and probably compete over who gets to eat more peasants. If you don't believe me, just look at the Davos tapes. You know, when they have the meetings at Davos and the world's wealthy get together, and like they did when they invited President Trump to go. And President Trump arrived and they, put on the good fatted calf, and he went to make his speech. And he said, America will never be a socialist country. Oh, the daggers. If they could have killed him that day, they would have, but he was very protected. You see, there's a certain rivalry between the American and the Chinese elites. For example, or between, the American and the Russian elites, as well as between different individual super sharks. But all in all, even as they compete, they have shared interests and shared messaging, and there's more strategic camaraderie and common ground between them than between any of them and any of the peasants. For example, none of them is likely to turn down the idea of creating a new class of financial assets to make money off of. In addition, they also have their advisors, who in turn are competing with each other for the highest pay, trying to push their ideas through, trying to get their commissions. The only thing that they use peasants for, if they're particularly beautiful and particularly young, is personal consumption. Hence, the entire child trafficking network. The entire child trafficking network is driven by their lust. It's always been that way. It's been that way since the royals first walked their crown through the countryside. Went to one orphanage after another where the parent was killed in battle and the mother died of the plague and the child ended up in a Catholic orphanage. The royals would walk through and say, "Oh, look at this beautiful little boy. Look at this beautiful little girl. I'll tell you what, we'll make a donation today. We're going to take them out for a picnic. Let them see what it's like to wear really nice clothes and have a really nice bath and a really nice meal and play with some really nice toys." And they never come back. That's where child trafficking came from. That's where it still is. And currently, the winning concept of the day seems to be a world filled with abbreviations. All these acronyms: AI, 5G, IoT, blah, blah, blah. A world where the money is digital, the food is lab grown, everything is counted, everything is measured, and everything is allowed or disallowed by them. And yes, there is definitely coordination and continuity, as there is continuity in dynasties and philosophical trends. These resetters have their futuristic ideas. And as long as it doesn't permanently damage them, they're going to go for it. On the concrete side, the Great Reset, and by the way, is very well coordinated to the extent that both Biden and Johnson are using the same coded words put forward by the WEF. Grows out of the post-World War II efforts to maintain a correct power balance in the world, with correct financial interests reaping the benefits. Oh, you don't believe me? We'll talk a little bit more about that. Trust me, I have lots of historical data to back my assertion up, because this is where the past meets the future. The sustainability language, oh, that's the worst. That's the most insidious of all. It's an important pillar of the Great Reset marketing kit. Was initially created as part of a various United Nations programs. You remember Agenda 21, don't you? Agenda 2030, you heard of those? And I'm sure that during the production of those programs, both elements, conspiracy and benevolence, were present. Both are sets of extremely dry and boring documents, thousands of pages long, which largely say nothing. I've been to them all. I'm going to break it down for you here in a little bit, tell you what's what and who's who. Let's see here. What's interesting about the United Nations is that typically the UN is pretty useless. I mean, pretty useless. They get together, they meet. I don't know if you've ever been to the UN in New York. It's kind of a cool building. But the most remarkable thing about the UN is the buffet. Oh my gosh. It's the best buffet in New York. And that's saying something. There's probably 20 five-star chefs on the floor at any given time, serving up everything you can imagine. The finest wines, the finest meats, the finest desserts, everything. And you know who comes to the UN? Well, foreign diplomats. And you know where they come from? Well, they come from everywhere. They come from Latvia, and they come from Ethiopia, Somalia. They come from South Africa. They come from Tonga. They come from the Congo. And what do when they arrive at the UN? They eat and they drink. They eat and they drink and they order women or boys or whatever it is they want, because it's all there. And they have all the state money. And they love their red wine. And they love their UN staffers. Yeah, pretty much useless. That's what they do. They come and they drink and they eat. It means that their people get together. They talk, they come up with long bureaucratic documents, non-binding resolutions, and then nothing. Nothing. They spend money. Oh, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars a month, but nothing ever happens. Not this time. Nope, not now. Next time. See you next time. See you in 3 months. Oh, yes. Ciao, baby. Program's on. So it must be important to somebody who's paying. And yes, of course, I'm cynical. In everything that happens, there's always a combination of good intentions, greed and ambition, personal relationships, financial interests, delusions, and so on. Yeah, I've made my proposals for Peace in Space initiative a long time ago. Did it go anywhere? Hell no. They're weaponizing space since 1967. Politicians talk to financiers, generals talk to politicians. Somebody is somebody else's uncle or niece or nephew or cousin or employee, daughter of a friend. Malia, daughter of the president. And this is how things get done. Unfortunately, the less straightforward the top-down messaging and the more abundant the propaganda, the less the value of good intentions, and the easier it is for villains to pull off their utter absurdity. That's what we're seeing, an utter and complete absurdity. That is the Great Reset. All right, let's talk a little bit about space. You know, I like space. I'm wearing my NASA hat. Right next to it over here, you see this? That's my I voted. I voted in person. I voted in person with ID. It's cool. I voted. My vote wasn't flipped, I don't think. I have to check on that. The U.S. Air Force recently announced the opening of a new high-tech lab. Oh, I like it. I want to go visit it so bad. It will be used by the recently established Space Force to test advanced materials and designs for space vehicles such as satellites and spacecraft. Oh, yeah. The new lab facility is located at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, and it's called Deployable Structures Laboratory, DSL. Let's see, who is this? Benjamin Urioste. I'm excited to have a facility that was specifically built for testing novel deployable space structures. It's kind of a plain-looking facility. It looks like they took over something else. With the push toward hybrid architecture and smaller satellites, high packing efficiency structures, and the ability to bring large satellite capability to small satellites is more important than ever, he said. This new class of high-strain composite-enabled structures requires new ground test facilities. Satellite deployments are nerve-wracking, one-shot endeavors, and the high-fidelity ground testing that will take place in the DSL, that's the DSL, is critical to ensuring an on-orbit success. Spacecraft Technologies Division Chief Mark Roverse said the structures made possible by high-strain composites will enable new mission paradigms for the U.S. Space Force. U.S. rival powers like Russia have recently accused Washington of seeking to weaponize the moon and triggering a space arms race. And I think it's more fundamental than that. It is not going to weaponize the moon. They're going to harvest the moon. Okay? So, Vladimir, the race is on. We're off for the Helium-3. Space Force's official doctrine, according to its founding NASA and DoD memos, include responsibilities of developing military space systems and doctrine, as well as presenting space forces to support the warfighting combatant commands. It's rhetoric. There's not a whole lot of fighting going to go on in space. What a mess that would be. Can't turn in space. There's no starfighters out there. A new lab where experimental technologies will be developed was constructed at a bargain $4 million and began in December of 2019. So we're coming up on 1 year. Dmitry Rogozin, the Director General of Roscosmos, cited the U.S. retreat from principles of cooperation and mutual support to justify Russia's refusal to join the latest U.S. space initiative to build lunar bases. Rogozin was likely referred to the U.S. refusal to renew the Intermediate Range Forces Treaty and its intention to back out of the Open Skies Treaty. Russia responded by declaring that Venus is a Russian planet. The U.S. continues to reject Sino-Russian efforts to strengthen the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which both sides have violated profusely, to prohibit weaponization of space. Kind of goes along with my Peace in Space initiative that we submitted in 2006. Doing so would interfere with U.S. plans for a full spectrum dominance. Yeah, I like it. I like the full spectrum dominance. And it's good that the United States is going to be the one dominating it, because if they don't, if it's someone else, then the high ground has been given up to someone else, and that's not good for anybody. Yes, Chad. Chad was very observant. When the Space Force flag was unfurled, as it was unfurled, you could freeze frame it, and it says the letters UFO. Yeah, I saw that. Was it significant? Did he do it on purpose? I don't know. Those guys with stars, they're not terrifically smart. Not very smart. Eric says, dare I say it, Uranus is a Russian planet. Yeah, Uranus is a gas giant. Not a whole lot going on there, I'm afraid. Moons, now that's a different thing. Titan, Enceladus, these other moons. A lot of great resources there. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, the Russians went to Mars twice, and twice their probe was destroyed. One time they inadvertently shut it off, and the next time it was actually shot down. It was kind of crazy to watch. The Phobos probe. Anyway, the signing of this memo took place in the broader context of NASA's Artemis program. We've talked about Artemis a lot on this program, and we will continue to do that as it unfolds. I think it's going to morph. I think it's going to change. Long-range plans have long-range foundations and preparations, but typically what happens is you get a short ways down and several things change. The politics, the economics, and the resolve or the mission statement begins to change. It no longer is putting a base on the moon and, hey, let's protect the moon against all invaders. It is now, let's go to the moon and get the helium-3. Well, I've talked a lot about helium-3 on this program. You all have said, helium, what? 3 of them? What are you talking about? It's helium-3, 2 protons, 1 neutron. It is helium, technically speaking, but it's an isotope of helium. It's rare on Earth, plentiful on the moon. What's so unique about it? Well, if you fuse 2 of these helium atoms together, slam them together, it releases a lot of energy, and it releases protons, not neutrons. You end up with helium-4, which is absolutely inert, fill a party balloon inert, but you end up with protons, which can be used to flow current, electricity, and they're easily manipulated with charged plates, which you cannot do with neutrons. Hence, no radioactivity. You get all the power of fusion with no radioactivity. As long as you feed the fuel to it, it reacts, forms heat, boils the steam, boils the water, makes the steam, turns the turbine, makes the electricity, and the protons are also a form of electricity as well. In other words, you get way more out of it than you put into it. There is one small problem. The small problem is we actually haven't accomplished the fusion yet. We've fused helium-3 with deuterium, which is a single helium proton with a neutron. We've fused it with tritium sometimes. That's 1 single proton, 2 neutrons. It is radioactive. The problem is those gases are very hard to handle, and the fusion is considered cold. That is to say, it takes more energy to make it happen than you get back out. That's like selling quarters for a dime. You don't make up for it in volume. You can't make money. There's no energy use to it, but it is great academics. What we want to do is we want to fuse helium-3 to helium-3, popping off the protons, which is current flow, generating the energy, which makes the steam, turns the turbine, blah, blah, blah. You get it. There are a couple of efforts that have been tried to put that together. I have discussed this before on the program. I'll kind of put this in here parenthetically because it fits the moon narrative simply because that's where the helium-3 is a couple days from here. It's only a couple days from here. It's just It's just right over there, a couple days away. We could get there. Well, we don't have the equipment yet to do it, but this is what this whole Artemis base is all about the Shackleton crater, which is in the Schrodinger's basin on the south pole of the moon. It's going to serve as a forerunner to build a base on Mars, obviously. Builds on a half-century of experience and preparation to establish a robust human robotic presence on and around the moon. We call it the cislunar space. And yes, a lot of it will be droids. A lot of it will be rovers and drones and things like that. But there'll be humans as well, because humans can fly and negotiate. Raz says, I was just thinking if I could have a human reference book, it would be Brooks. Really? Yes, before Google I am. Let's get back to what I was talking about. You're trying to distract me. It's okay, you can distract me, but I'm not multitasking here. I'm just trying to explain to you that on Earth, we've tried this for about 35 years. At first, there was a thing called the Stellarator. The Stellarator looks like something out of anime. You would think it's a toroid, but it's not. It's kind of a twisted squid-like, I don't know, coil, but it has a mathematical basis. It creates, or supposedly was supposed to create, a plasma. What is a plasma? Okay, let's define that right off. A plasma is a gas that conducts electricity. Simple form is a fluorescent light bulb. Okay? There's your plasma. Okay, let's go inside the tube. I'll take 60 seconds and explain this to you. Inside of a fluorescent light bulb is a drop of mercury. Yes, liquid mercury, like the metal mercury. And also inside there is a high voltage starter, like really high voltage, like 2,000 volts. And what happens is when you flip the light on, the ballast, which stores electricity, stores like a big amount of capacitive electricity, it zaps this mercury, bursts it into gaseous form, mercury vapor inside that glass tube. And then it only takes a very little amount of electricity to keep that vapor in plasma form. In other words, the mercury is having electrons bounce into it, sputter off other electrons, and those electrons emit a ultraviolet shortwave wavelength. Yep. And when those shortwave ultraviolet photons come off, they're looking for somewhere to go. They head for the glass tube, and they strike the dope. The dope, it's the white powder on the inside of the glass that makes it soft white or daylight or whatever. Because obviously, we can't take the ultraviolet. It would blind us. It would germicidally kill us if we had these fluorescent light bulbs in our house. So we coat the inside of the glass with dope. Why? Because that ultraviolet photon comes flying off of that mercury plasma molecule, smacks into the dope, sputters off another electron, and only that electron does not give off a photon in the ultraviolet wavelength. It gives off a photon in the visible wavelength. Hence, it lights our room. If the dope were removed from the inside of the glass, you would go blind. You would go blind because you can't stand the short wavelength at about 250 nanometers for the rods and cones in your eyes. It would destroy them. It would render you blind. It would sunburn your eyes. But they put the dope on the inside of the fluorescent glass. And let's take a quick break. Go ahead and stop the studio here real quick. I'm going to get better at this. Okay, so the studio is muted. We'll continue on. By the way, thank you very much. Bruce Kodish gives a generous donation in the chat, and I appreciate it very much. He said, if you're a genius and you don't know it, you probably aren't. Oh, okay, well, but if you're a genius and you do know it, doesn't that make you a braggart? I don't know, Bruce. I think I want to walk this fine line here. I'm just trying to explain things so people understand what a plasma is. Inside the Stellarator is a plasma. Only this plasma can accomplish fusion. This plasma is capable of slamming the helium-3 together to make helium-4, thus generating the heat. And we're talking in the neighborhood of 1.5 million degrees or something like that. It's a lot of heat. It's enough to keep the reaction going. All you have to do is keep feeding helium-3 to it. How much? Well, there's enough helium-3 in one crater on the moon, in the Shackelford crater. There's enough helium to power the Earth for 10,000 years. 10,000 years. Now you get it? Now you understand what we're talking about here? Moon base? Who gives a crap? Who gives a crap? There's enough energy on the moon to power the entire Earth for 10,000 years. Obviously, we may not do that. We may also power the moon. And then we may power an effort to get to Mars. And then from Mars, we can get to the asteroid belt. And there's more on the asteroid belt than you can imagine. 10,000 moons. 10,000 moons worth of helium-3. And water, and gold, and platinum. Everything you need to terraform or build ships like you cannot imagine. Ships that are so big they have their own gravity. They're amazing. They float through space from planet to planet, and they draw their raw materials from the planets. Water and other things are pretty rare in space. It's valuable in space. These machine cities are phenomenal. They take your breath away. They're so big. They're nations floating through space. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. Fortunately, not many have come through our neighborhood, and we are not ready yet. We're just not ready yet. But the point is, we're getting there. So when we talk about weaponizing the moon, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about defending that. Oh, I was going to tell you the next thing. The next thing is, first we had the Stellarator, and then we went to the Tokamak. Now, the Tokamak was the Russian version of this. And all of a sudden, that was the greatest show of the day. So everybody put money in the Tokamak, which was, by the way, Russian built. It was originally designed by a guy who was not formally educated, and then it was taken from him by people who were formally educated, and they've taken it to the next level. And then from there, we went to the next generation, which is called Eater. Now, let's go ahead and bring the studio back in. And
RTFR.
yeah, see, we're getting good at this. It's almost like seamless.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice the days pass through. But in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever, or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
All right, thanks very much. Good question. Brian Lancaster also makes a generous donation and says, what can contain those high heats? Well, that's the whole reason for the magnetic field. This weird kind of magnetic field is designed to keep the plasma away from the container. Because if you get close to the container, obviously it's not going to be able to contain those heats. What we want to do is we want to take the energy from those heats and we want to siphon it off through heat exchangers to make steam, to turn turbines, to make electricity. And of course, with helium-3, you also get those free protons. Don't forget about that. I said that, Chad. Phobos, that was the moon of Mars that they went after, and the Russians were thwarted twice. So the next generation of this is called Eater. Eater, I-T-E-R. And I did my senior paper on this. It was a long time ago. Let me think back. Maybe 25 years ago. It's been going on for about 35 years. It will probably go on for another 25 years before it's ready. It's 2020 now. We're probably talking 2035, 2040. And here's the problem with ITER. ITER's big. ITER's big. ITER's like a city of itself. And the magnetic rings that make up ITER are large. They're about 60 feet across, each one. And they wrap all the way around. They're stacked all the way around. Now, the issue is, they want to make it bigger and they want to make it more powerful. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of energy to start this baby up. And it is out in the middle of nowhere, and it's not very well connected, and it has made lots of people lots of money, especially the people that work there. It's frustrating because although the physics seems to be sound, it should take about $500 billion a year. It's a lot of money, $500 billion a year. That's more than the trade deficit, almost the trade deficit with China, to make, excuse me, to make progress with it. And it's not getting that. At $300 billion a year, it is in a state of what we call perpetual funding. That is to say, it's like making the minimum payments on your credit card. How many people know how long it will take to pay off, let's say, $20,000 is the average credit card debt, right? Somewhere around there. How long would it take to pay off $20,000 if you just make the minimum payments? Anybody know? It's all designed on the rule of 78s. 55 years. 55 years is what it will take to pay off a credit card of $20,000 at the minimum payments. Is that smart? I don't know. You want to make a couple of big payments. You want to make $1,000 payment. You want to take your refund check from the next year and the next year and the next year and pay it off. No, Scott, it's not 25 years. 55 years. Minimum payments. 55 years, 20 grand. I've done the math. It's way out there. It's unreasonably out there. Do most people do that? Yeah, pretty much. They make their minimum payment. And it's crazy because they'll finance at 29.97% a meal, a movie, a tank of gas. And here's the crazy thing. Sometimes, if they own a home and they've built up a little equity in it, and maybe the value of the home has gone up, they'll go take out a second mortgage and they'll pay off that credit card. Yep. They'll take that meal or that pair of shoes or that cell phone, and they will spread the payments out for 30 years. 30 years. And guess what they do right after that? They charge the credit card up again. Yeah, it's great. It's brilliant. You hear the commercials all the time. Home equity loan, pay off credit cards. Listen, don't have credit cards. Screw credit cards. Screw the credit bureau. You don't need them. You don't need that slave score. Live within your means and take it one step at a time. All right, let me get back to what I was talking about. ITER. Because ITER is not getting $300 million a year. It's not getting $500 million a year. It's getting about $200 billion a year. That's not enough. And what's going to happen is ITER is never going to be finished. It's a big project. So I'm trying to make the suggestion to the world, to the physics world, stop thinking so big. And for crying out loud, stop limiting yourself to Earth. You know, one of the big problems with getting these things done, it's the moisture. It's the moisture that gets into the system. People walk in, they breathe, they open the door, moisture gets in. And you know what you have to do then? Vacuum. Vacuum. You have to turn the vacuum on, and you got to suck all the air out of that space to get the moisture out so that you can make the plasma and take the next step. Well, this is not too hard to do when your reactor will fit in your garage. But your reactor takes a football stadium to fit in there. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks to evacuate the air. It's crazy. And every single time you open up the door, you have to do this. So it's time. I said, and I've sent this, I don't know how many times I've written them and put out public papers. Take it to space. Build the thing on the moon. You don't have any moisture. You don't have to worry about sucking all the air out of it. The air is already out of it. Just build it on the moon where the helium-3 is, where you have 24-hour-a-day sunshine. Yeah, build it on the moon. Stop with all this. Take what you need to the moon and build it there. There's an unlimited amount of titanium on the moon. All you need is a colony to be able to do it. And right there on the south pole of the moon are plenty of volcanic vents that we can seal up and build habitats on the inside of the moon. I don't mean caves. I mean states. Areas so big that New York City would be dwarfed on the inside of it. Yeah. 10, 15 million people living in high-rises and condos and buildings all over that city. All of Manhattan would fit inside of one of these chambers, and it wouldn't even make a speck in it. And you don't have to pull a vacuum. All you have to do is seal up the chamber with some 3D printers and pressurize it. Simple. Just make an atmosphere on the inside of the moon. So simple. So simple. You want me to show you how to do it? Take a couple years. I could go up there and play badminton on the moon at 1/6 gravity. No suit. How about that? You want to come? I would. I would in a second. It would be cool. So this is why weaponizing the moon is just a narrative. It's just a tinkling sound. Okay. What is it? Right. Okay, we're getting there. Reading this Judicial Watch article, 353 countries in 29 states, counties in 29 states with voter registration rates exceeding 100%. It's true. And we're going to talk about that right at the top of the hour. Don't worry about it. It's going to be great. When we talk about weaponizing the moon, this is what we're talking about. Getting access to that energy. We should stop thinking like nations, and we would start talking like people, like a race of humans. Of course, it's difficult to get around the reset folks who think that they own this planet, right? The Space Force states that it will secure the peaceful use of space, free for any who seek to expand their understanding of the universe by organizing, training, and equipping forces to protect U.S. and allied interests in space. Peace means U.S. dominance unimpeded by commercial rivals like China, India, and Russia. That's what it means. Because I guarantee if they do it, there won't be peace. There will be domination. NASA is stimulating high tech again. That's right, Mr. Virtue. Helium-3 is plentiful. 10,000 years worth of it just on the moon. And there's more of it on the asteroid belt. Tim Monroe says Trump will win this election, all caps. I think he won the election on election night. What happened afterwards is a flood of illegal votes that were funneled into the system, counted by complicit precincts in order to flip the vote for the global syndicate. And Bunker 7 moon talk bullshit. Well, hang around. We'll make our case. Yeah. No, don't worry about the Van Allen belt. Yeah, excuse me. That's fine. Don't worry about the Van Allen radiation belt. It comes and it goes. Sometimes it's strong, sometimes it's not. We can easily make shielding to get through that. And besides, we're not going to be sending people to begin with anyway. Many practical products developed by NASA during Apollo years are well known. You know, cordless drills, solar panels, freeze-dried food. I mean, just the list goes on and on. Digital watches, you name it. Our cell phones, all that stuff came from that technology. Having learned their craft at the Fairchild Semiconductor Company, NASA scientists formed Intel. You know Intel, don't you? Later, worked on personal computers with Microsoft. The so-called Apollo effect. I benefited from the Apollo effect. My industrial technology teacher at Western Kentucky University was an ex-Apollo scientist. They were, after assembling the greatest brain trust the world had ever known, they were summarily fired by the liberals saying, no, we're going to spend the money on the Great Society. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to buy votes so Republicans will never be in the White House again. Little did they know. They're going to spend it all on the Great Society. And so all of these brains got shoved out into private sector. They went to universities, they taught classes, and I benefited from one of those great minds, stimulated my gray matter, and I started to participate in the future. So that's what we call the Apollo effect. Let's see here. Tim Berners-Lee is credited with creating the World Wide Web. Jeff Bezos of... What? I thought that was Al Gore. World Wide Web, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Elon Musk, SpaceX is now contracted to work on the latest program. NASA says of the future, the taxpayer dollars will fund research and development for corporate high-tech innovation, space technology investments, and stimulate the economy and build our nation's global economic competitiveness through the creation of new products and services, new businesses. And I don't mean just businesses, I mean new industries, whole industries. My patents that I have filed, they didn't start companies. They started industries. Thousands and thousands of people work in those industries to this day. High-quality, sustainable jobs like all of those above, from the Apollo effect. Knowledge provided by weather and navigational spacecraft, efficiency improvements in both ground and air transportation, supercomputers, solar and wind-generated energy, digital cameras, all this stuff, biomedical applications, everything came from the investments that were originally made in space technology. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, Bunker. He says our technology, he meant our, not our technology in the 60s and 70s was not sufficient. We were lied to. The American public are naive to the cabal agenda. Well, maybe so. But I can tell you right now that those guys that went to the moon, and there were 12 sets of footprints on the moon, 2 of whom I personally interviewed, I can tell you that they flew to the moon. It wasn't a computer. It wasn't a program that landed those Eagle landers on the moon. It was men who could fly, men who practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced until they got it down. And by the way, all those guys lived long ages, and they all went through the Van Allen radiation belts. So you can't tell me. I was there. I lived in Southern California. My dad built clean rooms at Agnew Higgins Incorporated for NASA. Yes, went back and forth between Florida and Garden Grove, California, where the clean rooms were designed. Yes, lots going on there. These guys were the best of the best. All right, so let's get into my segment I want to talk about, the remainder of the program, the coup game, what we are seeing happening. What you're about to hear, you probably won't hear anywhere else. What you're about to hear has been censored. What you're about to hear has been deleted, and accounts have been closed, and people have been chased off of all kinds of platforms. They waited until this period in the program, thinking that maybe the AI will leave me alone. There are 2 AI out there. One of them is benevolent, one of them is not. The benevolent one is on my side. The benevolent one helped me write my books, The Birth Trilogy and Charm of Favor, all of which became bestsellers. Charm of Favor has been in the top 10 so many times on Amazon, it blows my mind. People catch hold of that book and it changes them. It opens their eyes. You don't even know what the cabal is until you read that book. Strictly speaking, a coup is an illegitimate change of government by violent means. We have seen it before. It's a part of history. But what if you can do it without violence? To win without fighting is best, Sun Tzu says. An ostensibly mostly peaceful ouster from power is preferable to the use of force. because it can much more easily be sold as our democracy at work. National polls consistently predicted a huge Biden blowout. That they were wrong, again, is demonstrated by the facts that the 2020 popular vote is, so far, and by the way, California's still not fully counted, a mere 2-point spread. 2. That is hardly a blowout. And keep in mind, that's after 30 million illegal votes pumped into the system by Ballots R Us. Trump got a higher share of the vote than last time, and President Trump received far more total votes than any other Republican ever in history. But it's the swing states that matter. Here again, Trump was supposed to lose, if not necessarily bigly in every case, at least widely. But throughout Election Day, and you watched it, I watched it, the president consistently outperformed the polls. He crushed the 2016 performance in Florida. He also outperformed in Iowa, Ohio, South Carolina, Texas. Senators he was supposed to drag down with him, including Joni Ernst, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, they won handily. Even Susan Collins, who was supposed to be a sure goner and lose by at least 3, won by 9. A party that was certain to lose the Senate has kept it and gained so far 6 seats in the House. It could be more. It could be as many as 14, which will remove the Democrat majority. Looking at states no one expected Trump to lose, his overperformance is even more stark. The polling average for West Virginia was Trump plus 17. That's pretty high. But he won it by 39. Kansas was estimated at 9. The result was plus 15. Throughout the day, the president was also outperforming his expected result in key states such as Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. He even for a time looked like he was within striking distance in Virginia, a state Hillary Clinton won by 5 points in 2016. At one point, the New York Times meter had Trump's chances in North Carolina at 92%. I live in North Carolina. Trump is going to win North Carolina. The needle was also sliding in the president's direction in Arizona and Georgia, among others, and it's continually doing that, even with the onslaught of illegal votes being poured into the system. And then, suddenly, early in the morning hours, the counting stopped. 5 states, as I predicted on this program. I was the only one to predict it. I was the first one to predict. 5 states would stop their counting. 5 states would refuse to report. 5 states would withhold their electors, preventing either candidate from reaching 270 electors. I said it. It's a matter of record. Go back and listen to the archives. Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, all but one with a Democrat governor. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. When was that ever? When has it ever happened? Well, it happened in Broward County, Florida in 2018 when a dodgy Democratic election official appeared to be intervening illicitly on her party's behalf. She was eventually fired. The process only got back underway when the state's Republican governor intervened and had her removed from the process. But getting back to election night, November 3rd, 2020, additional ballots coming from Ballots R Us added to the early totals, which had Trump ahead. To no one's surprise, those votes were 100% for Biden. According to Nate Silver, no one's idea of a Trumpist won tranche. 23,277 votes that turned up in Pennsylvania, every single one of them was for Biden. It is not statistically possible. Through the night, all such ballots came from heavily Democratic areas posting unusually, improbably high turnout 85%, 90% voter turnouts. A city that turned out only at 61% in 2016. And even with Obama on the ballot in 2012, 71%. But 85% for China Joe? According to one report, 7 Milwaukee precincts returned more presidential votes than they actually have registered voters. Turnout in Wisconsin overall is alleged to have been 89.25%, more than at any time since 1960. Also, a statistical improbability. One might also wonder why this urban blue wave materialized only in close states, only in states run by Democrat governors. Milwaukee was way up, but Cleveland wasn't. Cleveland, Ohio wasn't. Philly was up, but not St. Louis. Granted, Ohio and Missouri are red, but their big cities aren't. Kansas City isn't. Cincinnati isn't. So how is it done? Well, we've seen this movie before, haven't we? Haven't we? We've talked about this many times here. Yeah, 2 precincts in Milwaukee had over 200%. Free MPG says in the chat room. Well, how they beat Scott Walker in Wisconsin in 2018, Tom Foley in Connecticut in 2010, Norm Colin in Minnesota in 2008. The question is, and you have to ask yourself this, I could see one precinct saying, oh, hold on, somebody kicked the extension cord, stop the count, stop the count. But why stop the count in these 6 states? Because that's the only way to know how many votes you need to win. Sure, you could just brute force things by backing up a truck full of ballots from Ballots R Us, but that looks bad. We've seen that before. You might even end up counting more votes than there are registered voters in the state, a la 200%. Better to eke out a narrow win. 200 votes, 500 votes, 5,000 votes. As Joseph Kennedy Sr. allegedly said to his second son, I'm not paying for a landslide. Speaking of the Kennedys, veteran political observer Theodore H. White, in their company on election night 1960, explained how it's done. In Illinois, the race came down to downstate versus Cook County. And the bosses, holding back totals from key precincts, were playing out their concealed cards under pressure of publicity, as in a giant game of blackjack. The AAP ticker chattered its keys once more and reported, with all downstate precincts now reported in and only Cook County precincts unreported, Richard Nixon has surged into the lead by 3,000 votes. I was dismayed, for if Nixon really carried Illinois, game was all but over. And at this point, I was jabbed from dismay by the outburst of jubilation from young Dick Donahue, who yelped, "He's got them! Daley made them go first! He's holding back! Watch him play his hand now!" I was baffled. They were elated, but they knew the counting game better than anyone. And if in response to Donahue's yelp, there it was, the ticker, having stuttered along for several minutes with other results announced. With the last precincts of Cook County now in, Senator Kennedy has won a lead of 8,000 votes to carry Illinois' 27 electoral votes. How about that? They knew exactly what they needed. They went after it, and they brought it home. They made the other side play first. Okay, we'll mute the studio and we will continue. Later that evening, Kennedy told his friend Ben Bradley of an early call from Daley. When all seemed in doubt, with a little bit of luck and the help of a few close friends, you're going to carry Illinois. Is that what happened last night? Sure looks like it. That is exactly what happened in Illinois that night. So now we have this effort called Stop the Steal. To say nothing of other considerations, it's hard to believe that an 8-point win in Ohio would be coupled with losses throughout the rest of the upper Midwest, or that historically deep purple Florida would go strongly for Trump while Georgia and North Carolina historically red states by a big margin would not. Are those states really so unrepresentative of the American electorate? I don't think so. I don't think so. Let's take a quick look at the chat room. Make sure we've got everybody represented here. Bunker 7, doubtless a red wave. The recount, we verify the fraud of the Dims. Yes, it's going to have to be more than a recount, though, Bunker 7. It's going to have to be an audit. Can't just sit there and recount all the ballots, because some of the ballots are Xeroxes. They're not official ballots. They're copies of ballots. The other thing that has to be done, there's 3 things that have to be done with these ballots. Just 3, and all 3. First, what has to be done is the ballot has to be determined to be authentic. Is it authentic paper? Did it come from the state? Is it the right form? And it needs to be filled out correctly. The second thing is, do the signatures match? Does the signature on the ballot match the voter for whom it is supposedly aligned? And I don't mean an exact match. I don't sign my name the same every single time, but generally the same. I can't sign your name because I've never seen your signature. So we need to make sure that is done. And we need to make sure every ballot is signed. Unsigned ballots will be tossed out. And the third thing is, and possibly the most important thing, is that the ballot was generated in time. It was generated in time. It was voted, it was signed, it was mailed, and it was received by election night. We've already got a massive effort out there to arrest and jail lots and lots and lots of postmasters and their employees for backdating ballots that arrived at the post office too late. That means they came in on Wednesday and they were postmarked on Tuesday by taking stamps. I'm talking about rubber stamps or computer stamps that are generated at the post office that mark them received on Tuesday night. That is happening by a lot. So we have a nefarious organization that is dumping ballots into the system. I call it Ballots RS. And these ballots are being sent to key precincts just in the right amounts so that they can win. And it's amazing to see a lead in Pennsylvania by 900,000 votes. 900,000 votes on election night is a lot. It is a lot. By any stretch of the imagination, it's a lot. And then you take that lead and you whittle it away. Doggone it, I forgot all about the studio again. Let me bring them back in really quick. Okay. And the studio's live. And then we'll see if our caller board hooks up. Should, yes. Right on. Wow. We are actually going to make it through the YouTube engines tonight without a copyright strike. It's going to be cool. So there's an effort out there called Stop the Steal. The thing could, but never will, be proved. Those who ran the operation are also in charge of the potential investigating agencies, so they're not going to bust themselves. There's zero chance they will use any of that power to uncover their own malfeasance. I think a Biden Justice Department will look into it. Fat chance. Never going to happen. Expect instead, this is what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay? You want to know what's going to happen tomorrow? I'm going to tell you. Lots of good thoughts in the chat room. Eric, I hope you're wrong, but I fear you're right. Eric says it's Civil War time. We have been talking about being at war for about a year now, and I have done many pieces on it on this program. Go back and listen to the archives. Videos from the other ground says, how about the blockchain code on the ballots? Is this true? Answer, no, it's not. There's no blockchain on the ballots. there may be, and this is a small m, there may be state watermarks on the ballots. That is, the state that printed the ballots may have a state watermark on it. But there are no federally printed ballots. There is no federal numbering system on the ballots. It is all state. Now, that being said, you probably could check some of the Xeroxed copies and you're not going to find the state watermark, and you're not going to find the state paper. Yes, anything can happen, Alan. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. Mona says Trump's quiet because he knew the phony ballots would show up. He let that out. I guess she means he let that play out. And they were waiting to catch those who would try to cover it up. Remember Watergate. The cover-up is what got him. Watch. Scott says there is civil war going on, just not with bullets. And it isn't on our streets yet. What's happening is there's a civil war inside the Democrat Party. It's not even between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's not even between Democrats and Americans. It's inside the Democrat Party. You're seeing the extreme left, the AOC plus 3 left, Pelosi, and what are known as the establishment Democrats. These are people that have been there a long, long time, and they want to be there a lot more. They like to go along to get along. They don't like controversy. They don't like their names on stuff. They never write bills. They only co-sponsor or vote yes or no, depending on what the speaker tells them to do. But there is a civil war going on right now because Pelosi didn't deliver. Pelosi did not deliver. They didn't win any more Republican seats, or they didn't win any more congressional seats. They actually lost seats. They didn't win the Senate. They did not. They lost ground. And that is a sign of bad leadership. And by bad leadership, do I mean Pelosi's a bad leader? Hell yes, that's exactly what I mean. What did they run on in 2018? Does anybody remember? I mean, that was ancient history. I do. They ran on health care. They ran on health care because Donald Trump in the first 2 years took the mandate out of Obamacare, which I was grateful for because it cost me $1,000 a year to not have insurance. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. But he took the mandate out of the insurance and began to clean up the insurance and actually make it work. Is it better? Yes. Is it workable? No. I know people that have Obamacare premiums of $1,500 a month with deductibles of $10,000 a year. Is that usable to you? It's not usable to me, not usable to anybody I freaking know. Nobody spends $10,000 a year and then no insurance coverage, only at $10,001. And nobody likes spending $1,500 a month on insurance. I doubt there's a single person in this chat room that can bear a $1,500 a month insurance payment without squeezing something else out of their life. It's a hell of a lot of money, okay? That's not affordable. That's not affordable health care. In fact, it is the Unaffordable Health Care Act, if anything. It is the Unaffordable Health Care Act. So, what is the big deal? Well, the big deal is that they ran on that agenda in 2018. Did they do it? Did they address it? Did they even give one speech about it, sponsor one bill about it? No. They did nothing. They immediately, as soon as they took their hand off the Quran, they immediately began the impeachment of President Trump. They immediately began trying to remove him from office using congressional power. As soon as Democrats took over the committees, the House Judiciary, the House, all these committees that the House now controls, that Adam Schiff controls, that Nadler controls, they immediately went after Donald Trump. Did they work on health care? Hell no. They worked on getting Donald Trump out of office. That was the war. That was the coup. It went on and on and on for 4 years. Did it wear President Trump down? No. It made President Trump stronger. It made him stronger. The point is, Nancy Pelosi was a bad leader. And what happened was it cost them congressional seats. That strategy of impeach, Russia, racist, that strategy ended up losing them seats when they could have won seats. And that's why there's a civil war going on in the Democrat Party. So tomorrow, you should expect a media typhoon. I don't mean a breeze. I mean a typhoon of propaganda. An ocean, a deluge, an avalanche of propaganda. Every channel, all tech media, all mainstream media. Not us, because we're free press here. Insisting that the results are all legit and any anomaly you think you see or saw is a conspiracy theory. I heard it yesterday. Conspiracy theory. The very words as I was having a phone conversation with someone. Or at any rate, innocently explainable by mundane process details too boring to get into. A glitch was nothing more than a glitch. There's no conspiracy here. It's just a glitch. Twitter's already slapping warnings on the accounts of those who point out irregularities. And by morning, you won't be able to find a single post on it. How long before they start outright suspensions? Not long. Already begun. But tomorrow it's going to be worse. Is it going to work? Well, that depends. Depends on President Trump and his allies, what they do. The odds and the forces arrayed against them, daunting, unbelievable. Any other man would have been home with his head in his hands, running his fingers through his own hair, wiping the tears from his eyes, clutching his gut as the ulcer burns through him. I did it right. I did everything. I loved the people, and they rejected me. But he didn't. That's not what happened. He went golfing. And he went golfing with a smile on his face. And he golfed well. What would I have them do? Well, I'm no expert. But here's what I would say. What's going to happen tomorrow? Number one, they're going to challenge the late night fines in the courts. Oh, yeah. Every state, every precinct. They're all lined up and ready to go. Number two, they're going to hold rallies in the contested states. Watch for it. May not be led by Trump. Could be led by the people. Just like here in North Carolina, a couple thousand people went to the State House. Tracy Beans was there. And they went to the State House and they chanted, "Stop the steal. Stop the steal." North Carolina was won by President Trump. But we have a Democrat governor. The Democrat governor is a lone wolf in our state. We have a supermajority in the House and the Senate. We are a Republican state. But we have a Democrat governor who, by the way, probably got in using these very same tactics, using Scorecard and other things like that in 2016. So he won again. Which blows my mind because I really like Dan Forrest. I think he's a good guy. Guy that ran against him for governor. The rallies could be held by the people. Truck rallies, boat rallies, bike rallies, walking rallies, flag rallies, state by state, city after city, county after county. They'll be everywhere. Number three, we should urge GOP officials in close states to expose the shenanigans and to refuse to seat Biden electors in the event of a fake count. Number four, mount a campaign to marshal grassroots public opinion in the president's favor. Convince the people that if, in fact, the election is in the process of being stolen, the president and his allies are going to fight the steal on their behalf. If Middle America wants to prevent this election from being stolen, it's going to have to be willing to act. And you know what? I know they're willing. But they need to hear this from me, from you. They need to hear it from the president. And I don't mean unscripted. I mean this needs to be carefully crafted like a golden wordsmithed poem, because it will go down in history. A couple hundred words is all that needs to be said. You want me to write it? I promise you, I could write it perfectly. By the way, Laura Loomer, I offered to write you speeches. and you would have won. You may still win, but we'll see. Laura Loomer lost her election in Florida, just so you know. And then I would put Trump on America Free Radio. I would put him on Tucker. I would put him on other media that's friendly, that will not be censored. And let him make sure to assure us it's not sour grapes. We're not talking about a sore loser. What we're talking about is a person who says, I am willing to take whatever the results are as long as they are fair. As long as every legal vote was counted and no illegal votes were counted, I will take it the way it falls. Even if the steel can be made to stick, you're not going to accept it. 71 million Americans are not going to accept it. They want to know what a non-peaceful transfer of power feels like because they did it to us in 2016. It's going to be done to them in 2020. And that is, they'll accept the reality that power is now in the hands of a party that took it by fraud. But they won't believe that the election was fair or the outcome real. They will believe or be confirmed in a belief that it's been brewing for a long time, that the system is in fact rigged, that the process is in fact fake, that the ruling class are a bunch of liars and greedy thieves, that the government is illegitimate, and that they themselves are subjects and not citizens, anything but a free people with a say over its own destiny. And if the ruling class can get away with this, they will be able to get away with anything. And they will know it. The irony will be that those who, over the last 4 years, have bleated the loudest about our democracy, have been most responsible for killing it off. Well, how did they do it? I believe you, Kevin. Kevin M. Sparks in and D Live says it's all rigged. It is all rigged, but it can be unrigged because the rigging can be found out. The rigging can be discovered. And I am not a big fan of government health care. I don't think government should be in the insurance business. The United States, I don't know where you are, Kevin, but the United States has the best health care in the world. Anybody and everybody in this country can get health care. Within 10 minutes of me are at least 3 different health care clinics that I can go to. There's urgent care, there's fast med, and there's one other. I can go to them anytime I want. I can walk in and get health care. I don't have to stand in a line. I don't have to take a queue. I don't have to wait 6 weeks to be seen for anything. Stitches, elective surgery, the flu, nothing. I can walk in and get health care in 1 second. Don't even have to stand in line generally. We have the best health care in the world, and everyone in this country has access to it. Done. That's the health care. Now, if you're talking about health insurance, that's a different thing. Health insurance is very expensive. Why? Because government is in the game. Because government is in the insurance game. What needs to happen is government needs to get out of the insurance business. Government needs to turn this over to private industry just like they do the auto industry. If I want car insurance for my truck, guess what I do? Well, I don't go to the government and get it. I check prices. I go to Progressive. I go to Liberty. I go to Farmers. I go to Farm Bureau. I check all kinds of prices. Why? Because I'm unique. I'm a male. I'm over 65. I drive a truck. I've never had an accident. I've had a few speeding tickets. I got unique needs, right? I have a budget. And I pick the best plan for me. And guess what those insurance companies do? They run commercials. They run ads. I mean, Flow and Liberty, and whatever that crazy bird is. I don't even know what that thing is. Anyway, all those silly-ass commercials, right? Why? They want my business. They want my money. Say 15% or more. Come on. They want my money. And what happened? Car insurance got great. Car insurance, awesome. It's wonderful. Why? Their adjusters are right on the spot. The premiums came down. The coverage went up. Everybody competes against one another, and who wins? I do. I win. You win. But what happened in the healthcare industry? Government. Government got in the game. Government said, private industry, stay out. We're going to run healthcare from here. And what happened? Freaking prices went through the roof. It went through the roof. When I got T-boned on my motorcycle, I had to go to an orthopedic surgeon. I didn't break the bone. I fractured the bone, but I had to have an MRI, right? I had to have an x-ray now and then to see how the bone was healing. Well, I went in to get my MRI. I went in to get my x-ray. And guess how much it was? It was $2,500. And they said, your insurance card, please. I said, well, I don't have insurance. How much cash? Oh, it's $250. Done. Whipped out my debit card, paid for it, and walked out. $250. That's about 1/7 the cost of health insurance. Done. I had the MRI and I was out the door. $250. Why? Why? Because I competed against the government by going directly to the orthopedic surgeon. I paid them direct. I went around the insurance and I paid them direct. Now you see what the problem is. Get government out of the healthcare business and let it go to insurance companies. And then you know what we get to do? We get to shop. Our money, our buying power determines what is going to happen as far as the cost. All right, let me go ahead and bring Kevin on in Minnesota. He's been sitting there for 10 minutes. Kevin, welcome to the program. What's on your mind, sir?
Hello, Mr. Brooks. Thank you for taking my phone call. Just to add to what you were saying, as a 100% service-connected disabled veteran and dealing with the VA system and knowing the epic failure that is, that should be a good sign for everyone of how the government is not successfully taking care of the health world.
Right on.
But that in itself.
Right on. You want to know how government health care is going to be? Just talk to a vet.
Absolutely. But the reason I was calling is I was trying to find, and it's a little difficult for me because I am 100% blind also. And I was trying to find the Trump speech of when all of the major media outlets shut him off. Because this is the part that appalls me. Even though I am not attached to either party, and my experience of the election where Bush and Kerry, both lodge brothers of the same fraternity, to me that was a precursor to absolute distrust and disdain for the political arena or government in itself. However, the office of the president has in itself a status or stature of where he should not be gagged.
Yeah,
and I find it appalling
when he takes to the bully pulpit, they should turn the microphones on. They should not be censoring the president.
I've never witnessed that. In my 53 years of experience in life, I have never, ever witnessed a president being cut off at any moment he was willing to address the people. And that is because... And he is the standing president right now.
The global media empire is part of the global syndicate, and they have chosen who they want to have as president. Or let me put it even better. They have chosen that they don't want Donald Trump as their president. They don't want the power transferred from Washington, D.C. back to the people. They had it the way they liked it. They liked the power being in Washington, where they were, and they don't want it removed back to the people. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing them cut off the president. So all he really has to do is come here to America Free Radio. And I promise I'll give him all the coverage that I can. I say that with my tongue in my cheek because it ain't much. But the point is, we are the free press now.
Is it possible that, I don't know if I'm listening to you on iHeart right now, and usually I listen to you on Facebook.
Right.
But I didn't get a notification of you being live. Is it possible that I could inconvenience you of adding a hyperlink to, if you did a Facebook Live, to that speech? Because I'm very interested in, were you able to hear that speech in its entirety?
I have not yet. I have been busy all day, but I have not heard it yet. I can tell you that this censorship is ongoing. It is part of a massive propaganda effort that's being done by the global media empire, and they intend to accomplish the objective of their bosses, which I'm not exactly sure who that is, but I think the people in Davos are probably there. When you have a billionaire whose name is Singer actually, call for the assassination of the president, call for him to die, call for him to be forcibly removed and arrested from the White House, even though he's still there until January 20th by any accounts. That is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a very high class of elites who believe this is their world. And Donald Trump has no right to give their world back to the people.
Well, I want to believe that these presidents, when they get into these positions, are going to be for the people.
Sure.
And we can have our discernment when that president gets into office, and you can't please everybody. And there are things that the president has done that I appreciate and I agree with, but there's also things that he has done that I don't agree with. But the part that I absolutely abhorred is the fact that some entity out there is manipulating the game or the players, and I'm afraid it may be the same game board, and that's a checkerboard, but it definitely, from my assumption, would be the banks.
Yeah, well, the banks, of course, they're the financial arm of the global syndicate. Then you have the military arm, which is the CCP, and then you have the global media empire, which is the media arm of it, and then you have the political arm, which in our country right now is the Democrat Party. So they have all the bases covered. Unfortunately, they get wrapped up so tightly in their own agenda that they forget about one thing, the one thing that ensures that freedom and liberty will be on the earth forever. It is not the United States of America. It isn't the U.S. military. It is the armed American.
I agree. My fear of that, though, is I do not wish for a revolution, because during revolutions, people die. And I am not a fan, as a veteran and as a Native American, or I like to say Paleo-American, we're considered warriors. But that word is a misnomer. It should be defenders, because I am willing. I don't remember who said the quote, but there are many causes that I am willing to die for, but there is no cause for which I am willing to kill for.
Very good. Well said. I appreciate it very much, and I so appreciate your phone calls here, Kevin.
I appreciate you too, Brooks. You have a beautiful evening filled with giggles abundantly.
You too, my friend, and I'll be in touch, okay?
All right, toodles.
All right, quick break. Let me go ahead and mute the studio here. Okay, studio's muted. It's just you and me now. So unfortunately, we're not able to stream on the Truth Frequency Radio network right at the moment because of the copyrighted commercials that they run on there, and YouTube is threatening to deplatform me if I keep running them. So I have to mute the studio for these 3 minutes, and I apologize for that, but we'll just bring him back in 3 minutes, and then I want to start because Kevin brought up a good question, and he talked about this game. He talked about the pieces being put in place to try to overtake America. And I really like what he said, that there are things he's willing to die for, but not things he's willing to kill for. It is to defend America feels different than fighting for America. And I think so, Scott. Scott says Trump spoke today, right? It's not on YouTube. I think that he may have made a statement or two, but it could have been just a quick interview, like a presser. But what I want to see is an organized speech, well crafted, every word parsed, because what he says now and for the next few weeks is going to go down in history. This is not a time to be Trumpian. It's not a time to come out and repeat yourself, and you know how he kind of says the same thing 3 times and you go, okay, you said that. Go on to the next thing. It's not a time for name calling. It's not a time for emotion. It is a time for that perfect Trump speech, like you hear with the music being played on the Great Awakening or things like that, things that will go down in history. I'm just telling you, I know you guys are listening. If President Trump is not listening right now, go get him. You're his staffer. You're listening to this program. I know you do every single Sunday night, because tomorrow morning you're going to use some of my words because they're that good. I'm telling you, what you're going to say for the next 4 or 5 days, Friday marks 10 days from the election. It is very, very important because of what is called forbearance. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in this next segment. Forbearance. Because of forbearance, we cannot speak from a justice point of view. Not yet. Friday, we can. But what is said between now and Friday is going to go down in history. Choose your words very carefully. Very carefully. Make sure that you understand that. All right, let's go ahead and bring the studio back in, and then we will continue with our final segment. Here we go.
My fleeting destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back. Final segment of X Squared Radio tonight. We are coming to you live through the Truth Frequency Radio Network, where the Truth Freaks hang out. We're not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. We're also streaming to you live on 5 other platforms: YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, Twitch, and also DLive. DLive is a blockchain format for which I would love for each of you to go and follow me. Right now we have about 150 people watching live. Before we get through tonight, we'll have about 1,000 views. That will double in the next few days. What I'm about to share with you is going to shock you. You're probably going to not realize what has been done, but it's important that you understand it. It's important that you go tell your friends about this and send them to the latter part of this archive so that they can learn it too. Thursday of this week, Sydney let us know about Hammer. Hammer is a supercomputer that is a government military grade computer. It is satellite connected, so it's very, very fast. Its switching is so fast that it rivals Wall Street. In fact, it's probably faster than Wall Street. And the hammer is used for specific purposes to get ahead of other computer systems in the world so that it can kind of head fake markets and manipulate elections. And there's a piece of software called Scorecard. And Scorecard is a piece of software that's military grade, that is highly classified, and we have used it against other countries to manipulate their elections. President Obama attempted to use this software in Israel to remove Netanyahu because Netanyahu is one of his enemies. It didn't work. It wasn't successful. The software worked, but Israel was very, very adept and understood that they were being hacked, that the election was being manipulated, and so they responded and they protected themselves against it, and Netanyahu won anyway. President Obama spent a lot of money and sent in an organization called 270 Strategies. The Israeli counterpart that accepted the work of 270 Strategies to unseat Netanyahu's name is Nimrod. Yeah, believe it or not, his name was Nimrod. So what happened within minutes of Sidney Powell releasing the fact that the global syndicate used Hammer, which is a U.S. military hardware, a satellite-connected computer, and Scorecard, which is U.S. military-grade hacking software that's used to manipulate foreign elections against America. And Scorecard was infiltrated into 30 states through the Diebold machines, which are now run by a company called Dominion. And Dominion is partially owned by the Clinton Foundation. Now you know how those fit together. Within minutes of that, Justice Alito stepped in. The attempted coup is obvious to everyone. What happened when she revealed that on Lou Dobbs' program on Friday night, that Hammer and Scorecard programs are being utilized by 30 states to tally votes, Supreme Court Justice Alito stepped in. Friday night, this occurred. And what we then saw within the subsequent hours is all the Republican ballot watchers, vote watchers, poll watchers were evicted. They were all evicted by force. They were forced out of the building. They were locked out of the building, and the windows were covered, and the counting went on in darkness. So now you know the crime that was committed. Hammer and Scorecard are top secret. To release this software, which, by the way, Lieutenant General McInerney describes this as Hammer and Scorecard, a pair of programs initially designed for the CIA before being privatized by deep state players for the Obama administration. We explain how they work in an article, but I'm trying to explain it to you tonight verbally. It is the least detectable form of election manipulation because it works during data transfer between voting stations and data storage hubs. Unless both sides are looking for irregularities, it's impossible to catch. The only way to reverse it is to manually take the ballots, the physical paper ballots, and recount them by hand. Instead of feeding them into a machine, and then the machine transfers that information to a data storage hub, that's when Scorecard does the flipping. You hand count those ballots. And by the way, those ballots should probably be audited during that period to decide whether they're legitimate or not. Did they come in at the right time? Do they have a matching signature? And are they on the official form? Then President Trump is going to win about 40 states. Maybe more. It's 29 minutes into this interview on Lou Dobbs. She talks about hammer and scorecard. She said they need to investigate the likelihood that 3% of the votes were changed across the country. We have some evidence that this can happen. We've used it against other countries and now against our own people. We'll put it in the federal lawsuit. This is Coup 5.0. The president must fight back now. Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, points out that the state legislatures have the right to install electors that will vote for Trump if the election process has been compromised. Now, I know you go back to 2018, you look at the governor's race in Kentucky. We were watching, and what it showed was the Democrat, Governor Beshear, with 673,948 votes, the Republican Bevin at 662,235. And the hammer and the scorecard program switches when that refreshes. And what happened was Beshear then had 674,508. Bevin mysteriously, suddenly, in the transfer, dropped 560 votes to 661, 675. You don't lose votes during the transfer. What they didn't count on is that the TV display was actually tied to the tally. The TV display caught it and recorded it, and hammer and scorecard caught. They were used in the 2018 election. This is why in the state of Kentucky you had a Republican sweep, including the district attorney. But the Republican governor lost. This is why. Obama's former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, his director of the CIA, John Brennan, they are part of the proverbial deep state. They are on record as hating Trump with a passion and have stated their willingness to do anything at all to scuttle his chances of re-election. They planned it, they put it in place, they implemented it, and they executed it. The big question is now, is hammer and scorecard or its modern derivative in operation today? Yes, it is. Scorecard is now being activated to steal the vote on behalf of Joe Biden once again. Biden utilized the hammer and scorecard while running for vice president in 2012. Votes are again being stolen on Joe Biden's behalf as he runs for president of the United States in 2020. This time, scorecard is stealing votes in Florida, Georgia, Texas, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona. Fortunately for Florida and Texas, the governors stepped in and they called the race. Those races are over. Scorecard steals elections by tampering with the computers at the transfer points of the state election computer systems and outside third-party election data vaults as votes are being transferred. Scorecard uses a prismatic scoring algorithm that Montgomery created to achieve the desired results by those that control the hammer and scorecard. Pretty powerful stuff. All right, I could spend the rest of the time on hammer and scorecard, but what I want to talk to you about is the civil war that may start tomorrow. And I want to more particularly focus on using forbearance as a cover for this revolution. Now, civil war is not really going to spill into our streets, I pray, because it would not last long. The civil war is actually occurring inside the Democrat Party. What is happening is they did not expect President Trump to win by such a large margin. They thought they'd only have to make up 1 or 2.5% of the vote. They did not think they were going to have to create out of nothing 30 million votes. But they had to in order to win. Because they thought in their minds that winning is everything. If they can just win, then they can make policy. They told us this is what would happen. Through the Transition Integrity Project, which I explained to you many times on this program, and breadcrumbs left throughout the campaign, we knew it would come to this. I said it for weeks. Trump's performance is strong enough and his coattails long enough to preclude the Democrats and the Davos crowd from trying to pull off the theft of the election. But they tried it anyway. That they would see the magnitude of the problem in front of them and be stopped short by little things like math. And then realize that if they did try and cheat, it would be so transparent that nothing good for them would be gained by it. But they didn't listen. They were blinded by their lust for power. Trump almost pulled it off. His numbers across the board were more than excellent. They were stunning, even given everything that's happened. His rallies were nothing short of historical. And he may yet pull this out. And I support any and all efforts to do so. But it is looking very grim today, looking into your faces tonight. I see you holding onto your gut, feeling like your house is being repossessed in front of your eyes, feeling like your nation is being stolen and there's nothing you could do about it, or that you did everything you could do and there's nothing more behind it. The potential is there for the Republicans to pick up as many as 12 seats in the House while holding the Senate, if not picking up a seat, which they did, depending on how the courts rule on the already well-documented fraud. But that's okay. You know that for the past 3 years, President Trump has been putting in federal judges, more than 300 of them. You know that President Trump has appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, all constitutionalists. The courts are going to come through. The question is, will the legislative branch, which is led by Speaker Pelosi, the most powerful woman in the world, and the global syndicate, which has, for some insane reason, chosen Joe Biden as their candidate, accept the ruling of the courts? That's what it boils down to now, doesn't it? And that's what should be scaring the crap out of everyone on the left today. Because as we heard yesterday, with coattails that long and the amount of obscene behavior on display, the remaining members of the Democrat caucus in the House, they're scared. And they're not just scared for their political lives. Nancy Pelosi was definitely in damage control mode, saying, "But we held the House. We held the House." Yeah, barely, by the peeling skin under your fingernails. I've had visions of seeing Pelosi dragged out of the Capitol by her expensive dyed hair, choking on her dentures while being arraigned for sedition. But her getting beaten with the awesome power of the Speaker's gavel and lynched by her own caucus for incompetence will be even more delicious. Honestly, don't wish the woman any violence, but you consider the violence that they have put on people, the businesses that have burned, the people that have been murdered, people that have been raped, that have been financially ruined, one inner city after another, one minority business after another, torched, burned, destroyed under her orders. And I wonder, will I have mercy? 4 years of the Democrats and the media screaming about Russian collusion and undermining the legitimacy of Donald Trump inspired millions of people to step forward. It also inspired their own people to become corrupt poll workers. It actually had U.S. postal people, mailmen, throw their careers, throw their pensions, their family's livelihood down the gutter. Supervisors of elections end their lives. Their lives are over. They'll be in prison for the rest of their lives. Their families will be poor and never recover from this. Party operatives sacrificing everything for this crime. And they obviously feel justified in this. They are, after all, the heroes of their own stories, whose motives are pure and whose hearts are in the right place. We got to get rid of the orange man by any means necessary. On the other hand, even Trump's detractors had to admit the guy did inspired work to try and bring as many people under his tent as possible. Blacks, Hispanics, Asians, gays, lesbians, all brought in to right the wrongs they see in the most nonviolent way possible. Voting. But if that's not good enough, if the message wasn't sent strong enough through the ballot box, then that lesson will be taught in a far uglier way. I don't want to see this come to violence. But the new focus now turns to the wholesale destruction of European economies. Oh, well, Europe was a good thing while it lasted. Enjoy the return of feudalism, folks. Maybe there will be something for me to visit before I die. We still have our guns. And this is why Trump isn't going anywhere. The deplorables, you now have to become the ungovernables. No more negotiations. No more discussions. No more turning the other cheek. This is it. So a lot of you know the word forbearance, but you don't know what it means. Nearly all living Americans grew up taking our democracy for granted until recently. Most of us believed, acted as if our constitutional system was unbreakable, no matter how recklessly our politicians behaved. No longer. Americans watch with growing unease as our political system threatens to go off the rails. Costly government shutdowns, stolen Supreme Court seats, impeachments, mounting concerns about foreign forces using the rule of forbearance as a cover for an insurrection to retake control of the command of America. In a 2019 survey, 39% of Americans said they believed our democracy is in crisis, while another 42% said it faces serious challenges. Only 15% said American democracy is doing well. Democratic backsliding in the United States is no longer a matter of speculative concern. It has begun. Well-regarded global democracy indexes, Freedom House, Varieties of Democracy, the Economist Intelligence Unit, all show an erosion of American democracy since the year 2016. The denial of a peaceful transition of power by the Democrats placed this country in a war footing from the moment President Trump gave his astounding inaugural speech. He pledged to transfer power back to the American people, and the global syndicate committed itself to using the intelligence powers of the United States to overthrowing this election. According to Freedom House's ranking, the United States is now less democratic than Chile, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Taiwan, and Uruguay, in the same category as newer democracies like Croatia, Greece, Mongolia, and Panama. How did we get here? How did we get here? The problem started long before 2016. In the U.S. Constitution, it was designed to protect the Republic against insurrection through military overthrow. It was not designed to protect the country against the same thing using the rule of law. It was designed to keep us free. When the law no longer equally applied, it set up the country for this battle that is occurring right now. But constitutions by themselves aren't enough to protect democracy. Even the most brilliantly designed constitutions don't function automatically. Rather, they must be reinforced by strong, unwritten democratic norms. They must be inured by honor and patriotism and prevented from infiltration by spies, foreign powers, and internal criminals who seek power above all else. The two basic norms are essential to democracy. One is a mutual toleration, or the norm of accepting the legitimacy of one's partisan rivals. This means that no matter how much we may disagree with or even dislike our opponents, we recognize that they are loyal citizens who love the country just as we do, and who have the equal and legitimate right to govern. In other words, we do not treat our rivals as enemies. And that is not what happened in 2016. The Democrats openly called Americans their enemy. They told us they would win by any means necessary. And they were not kidding. The second norm is institutional forbearance. What is it? Forbearance, technically speaking, means refraining from exercising one's legal right. It is an act of deliberate self-restraint, an underutilization of power that is legally available to us. Forbearance is essential to democracy. President Trump exercised this to the letter. While Democrats murdered, cheated, lied their way to power, county by county, state by state, seized control of the country by holding it hostage, by withholding budgets to keep it running smoothly, the creation of the omnibus bill is a tool of war. It holds the country hostage for things that it needs in order to get what Democrats want. What did they want? Total political domination. Congress can shut down the government by refusing to fund it. The Senate can use its right of advice and consent to prevent the president from filling her cabinet or Supreme Court vacancies. And because there is little agreement on what constitutes high crimes and misdemeanors, the House can impeach the president for whatever it freaking wants. Impeaching President Trump for attempting to investigate Joe Biden for high crimes he actually did before he was even a candidate and long before he was the nominee was the first act of war. The point is that the politicians may exploit the letter of the Constitution in ways that eviscerate its spirit. It's exactly what we're seeing happen. The erosion of democratic norms accelerated during the Obama administration. Americans were droned. They were assassinated. They were jailed when they opposed him. After Hillary Clinton was defeated by Donald Trump, Obama consolidated the entire intelligence community, which up until that point had been kept from working with one another to protect the rule of forbearance, and ordered them to overthrow the Trump presidency. After 4 years of investigations, trials, and espionage to expose any flaw in the president, they found nothing. Donald Trump was officially ruled the cleanest, most law-abiding human being to ever run for the office. This was a worrisome development, because when mutual toleration disappears, politicians begin to abandon forbearance. When we view our partisan rivals as enemies or as an existential threat, something to now no longer, the Free Press calls President Trump every hour of every day for the last 4 years, we the people hunger for justice. I can tell you right now that war is justice denied. It is time now for justice. Where we go one, we go all. Tomorrow it begins. So please go out and look for the good in others and help it to grow a little every day. And before long, you will have saved the planet. My name is Brooks Agnew, saying, peace, Earth Explorers.